We're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rewind. Marty was on vacation last week and so was not contractually obligated to watch any movies, so he did not. So I am here with Darren and a special guest, Jesse Galena.
Hello.
Our resident dinosaur enjoyer. We're going to be talking a little of the new Jurassic World. I'll probably spend a goodly amount of time on the new Superman, and then just some things we've been watching. Hello and welcome. This is The Rewind. My name is Jack, in case you didn't know that. I don't think I said it before this. I'm not used to hosting. All right. So before we get into Jurassic World, hi everybody. How's it going? Anything you want to kind of lightly touch upon before we get into Jurassic World talk? I know for me, I saw a couple trailers that I was really, really excited about, or one that I was really excited about, which is the trailer for the movie Exit 8.
Yeah. Exit 8.
Exit 8, what it looks like is a sped up Groundhog Day-like horror movie. Ooh. And it is based off of the video game of the same name, Exit 8. There's kind of a new genre of video games called Anomaly Hunters, in which you go through a similar environment over and over and over again, looking for anomalies, if they're haunted or whatnot.
Is this like, because I remember a while ago it was like loops were a big thing as well, where it was Groundhog Day-esque. You have to complete all the things within a single loop, so you have to like memorize patterns and stuff. That was the guy who doesn't play video games on the video game channel.
No, and so it's very similar to that, but just in one hyper-specific location. And so as you go through this one location, if you notice anything is off, you stamp it as an anomaly, and the game moves on. And for fans of horror genre, for scary things, for jump scares, people are really liking this. This is a movie based off of a game in that genre. It looks like a phenomenal horror movie.
It honestly looks really
in the video game phase. Sorry.
Yeah.
It does look good. And as someone that doesn't like Anomaly Hunt, I love horror games. I love horror movies. I don't like Anomaly Hunt games because of the repetition.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of them, of like, oh, you do have to scan the environment. And then that paced as a movie, not me literally checking every tile on a gosh darn subway.
Yes.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, it looks really good.
It's like when I watch Sonic and he doesn't run repeatedly into walls. It's so much more satisfying.
Exactly.
Sometimes the adaptation makes it work. Absolutely.
I mean, it is worth noting that like there is this big, again, we are now in the prime IP video game wave where like Minecraft is the biggest movie of the year so far. I think still at this point, Jurassic World is probably going to overtake it at some point soonish, Darren thinks. But like, yeah, we've got like Twisted Metal is coming back to Peacock at the end of the month.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Season 1 was so good.
Yeah. Inexplicably good. Like, I mean, and again, I know I'm a critic, and I know I should be like, okay, I approach everything impartially with no prior judgment whatsoever. But again, shout out to, obviously companion on the channel, friend of the show, KC, who has very strong opinions about Anthony Mackie, as I recall. So you're like,
I agree.
We're watching an adaptation of like a Twisted Metal video game, which is a car shoot 'em up starring Anthony Mackie, and somehow it is like just delightful fun. It is like the first season is like so sails over those low expectations incredibly well.
Yeah.
It's great. And I think like we're finally finding that kind of that rhythm within the video game genre of like taking the thing from the game that gave us either the joy or the tension and adapting it properly instead of as I recently rewatched the 90s Mario Brothers movie, instead of just kind of like painting over a movie with a video game aesthetic, we're actually taking the things that make the video games interesting.
I just feel like not to give credit to Super Mario Brothers, the 1990s movie, it does feel like you described via whispers what the video game was, the person writing it. You didn't let them touch a console or see any photos, but you're like, he's a plumber, so there's pipes, and there's dinosaurs. It's a big dinosaur named Bowser. And like, it's like, okay, I got it. Fine, we got it.
Don't tell me anymore. No, I'm good. I'm good.
That lit the fire of my imagination. I do want to, like, you're very good at, like, I think you're right in terms of closing in on like what it is that we like about these games. Because the thing about Twisted Metal, as I recall from the first season, is that like it's the rare example of 90s nostalgia done right, where like it is so much not just like the story and mythology of Twisted Metal, which I'm going to put my hands up. I apologize to any Twisted Metal heads out there. I don't really care about the mythology of like Twisted Metal. I don't really need lore in my Twisted Metal adaptation.
Yeah.
So instead, the show kind of zeroes in on actually what you like about Twisted Metal is the fact that you played it when you were 12 years old in 1998 and it was just great fun. So the soundtrack is pulled from like 90s like pop. The references that they're making are all to like 90s movies. You know, they reference like the Babysitters Club, which is peak like 90s teen culture in there. And it's like, yeah, no, that is how you adapt Twisted Metal. You don't try to adapt the game because the game doesn't have a story and thus is unadaptable. You try to capture some recreation of the experience of playing the game, which I found really charming.
Yeah, and that it is very much built as a love letter to B movies and like B entertainment, and like that they capture that. They know their budget has to end here, or it will look too good for what it needs to be.
Absolutely. Like it is, they shot, like it's mostly shot on like airfields and like looks like industrial warehouses where they got like a bulk deal in cargo containers. And it's great because like you can do practical explosions if what you are exploding are cars that cost like $100 at a used car dealership where you bought them in bulk. Like it looks like Xena Warrior Princess, which is what streaming shows should look like. That is the level at which streaming shows are like a manageable, justifiable expense. They shouldn't look like a movie we're going to talk about later, Superbad. They should look like Xena Warrior Princess, Hercules the Legendary Journeys, or like Walker Texas Ranger. And I think like to Jesse's point, like Twisted Metal gets that. It's like, the apocalypse consists of 3 blokes in an airfield. Like, yeah, there's a moment I think towards the end where they're like, this is more people than I've seen in one place. And it's like, yes, yes, it is.
Well, speaking about things that have the budget of Xena Warrior Princess, the other trailer I saw is the Red Sonja trailer.
Dope.
And Darren looks interested. I'm sure you have a few issues of Red Sonja behind you.
Actually, I keep the Conan downstairs. Actually, close to where I work, because you want to have the Conan stuff close to heart.
Yeah, Red Sonja has had some wonderful comic runs. Shout out to Gail Simone's entire Red Sonja run, which was really phenomenal work in comic books. Had a real dang iffy mid '80s action movie going off of the Conan franchise, and this looks like it's going to be a big wet fart coming right out the gate. This looks like that modern Tomb Raider movie where it has zero budget and zero care for the source material. Awful garbage nonsense.
Jesse wants to jump in here.
Oh
Sorry.
no. I thought it looked so fun.
I think it is interesting that we are arriving at this stage of IP where, like, I think of, like, is it the Hellboy movie recently? Was it The Cursed Child? I can't remember what it was from last year, where that looked like it was shot on a budget of like £20 and bubble wrap. You know, it does feel like we've reached the point where, like, you no longer have to have a gigantic studio behind you to be making a comic book adaptation, which is interesting. I think it lends, it's an interesting avenue, I think, for the medium or the kind of genre to explore.
To me, this looks like a movie that will have no guts about it, no meat to it. As far as like, anyone who reads Conan or read Sonja, like, we are mostly in it for the violence, a little bit for the story. That's a lot of what I care about when I read those. They're very fun. They're very simple. If you read something based around a barbarian, you want mindless violence because that's part of the. But
you read joy. Conan the King for his like legislative policy, like those, like
right, exactly. And so this to me looks like a movie that won't have the budget to do action correctly, and so they're going to focus on all the wrong things, and so it looks like it won't be fun, which is the upsetting thing about it for me.
We did have the Conan starring Jason Momoa a couple of years ago, didn't we? Like 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Wasn't this like his big off Game of Thrones thing? I love that Jack's like, I completely wiped that from my memory.
Oh.
Yeah, there was a Conan the Barbarian remake.
That wasn't Jason the Momoa, was it? Jason the Momoa is what I said.
Jason the
no.
Momoa? Was it not?
No, then maybe it was another one of those big guys around the same time.
It was another big guy.
Hang on. I gotta look it up now.
We gotta look it up. All right,
was
apologies
that Jason
to listeners
Momoa?
for that.
Hold on, 2011.
I love that when I search Conan the Barbarian 2011, like Google's like, did you mean the 1982 film? And it's like, I wish that I did.
Yeah, it was Jason Momoa.
Oh my God, that was Jason Momoa.
Like literally right off the back of Game of Thrones, because the idea
Yeah.
was, what was he doing in Game of Thrones? He was doing Conan the Barbarian, so
Yeah.
we should just have him do that in a Conan the Barbarian
I
movie.
memory hold that entire movie. There we go.
Wisely.
Maybe this is why I'm excited about Red Sonja. I enjoyed that movie. It's dumb and it's very fun.
And I will put my hands up here. As somebody who is like generally critical of nostalgia culture, if they announce tomorrow King Conan starring Schwarzenegger, I would be like, take all of my money.
Oh, day one. Day one.
Yeah.
You'll be a producer.
That's it exactly. It's like I sold my house and I showed up with all the cast. Like, we've actually already budgeted the film. In fact, because you watched the trailer, we've actually already shot it as well. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with all this money now?
That's fair. That's fair. So yeah, I guess those are a couple trailers that I saw that I'm relatively excited about. Anything else that you want to dabble into before we start talking Jurassic's Worlds and Scarlett being the highest paid actress in Hollywood because she didn't want to do that movie, so asked for an unreasonably high budget and they gave it to her.
Like, it is the plot of the movie. The plot of the movie is literally Jurassic. It's like Scarlett Johansson will do a Jurassic Park if you pay her $10 million. Oh,
Right.
You want Mahershala Ali? That's going to cost you another $10 million. Like, I love that because the movie was, we talked about before, it came together so quickly. It was literally Universal realizing they had a like Vin Diesel shaped gap in their 2025 schedule. I believe they like announced that they were doing it in January last year, which is an incredibly short turnaround for a feature film. Superman, I believe, wrapped filming like April last year, or around, like, to give you a sense of like how much the gap or how big the gap generally should be. And yeah, like, it is very obvious that like, as he was writing it, David Koepp was like, well, what is my main character's motivation? Hey, Scarlett, if you were in a Jurassic Park movie, what would be your motivation? 10 million. Got it. All right. We're good to go.
I guess Darren, let's start with you. What did you think of what is even this Jurassic World called?
Jurassic World
Jurassic
Rebirth.
Jurassic World Rebirth.
I think it's like maybe the third best Jurassic Park movie without actually being good, which is like the greatest praise and most damning criticism you can make of it. I think it is better than all of the Jurassic World movies previously, the trilogy. And I say that having like a soft spot for Fallen Kingdom, which gave us Nosferaptor. And like, what if we did dinosaurs in like 1997's Dante's Peak meets Volcano as a pitch? But like, generally speaking, I did not like the Trevorrow movies. I thought they were very bad. I thought they were overly convoluted, needlessly overplotted. The characters were flat, two-dimensional, even by the standards of monster movies. And they were driven by this kind of like need for modern spectacle.
Sure.
What I kind of like, I want to be very clear, faint praise. This is faint praise. But like, this movie is written by David Koepp, and it was clearly like written on handkerchiefs in a bar. Like, when he was just like, you're gonna give me like 500 grand for this, right? This is it. This gold is what I'm weaving for you. But it understands the basics of a 3-act structure, where the movie does have like a clear beginning, middle, and end, where like they're going to the island, they're on the island, they need to get off the island. I mean, it's not Shakespeare, but it's like a solid 3-act structure for a dinosaur movie. It understands the concept of character arcs. Now, doesn't know how to do them particularly well, but it understands what they are. In that there's a moment at the start of the movie where they're on the boat in Act 1 going to the island, where like Scarlett Johansson sits down with Mahershala Ali, and Mahershala Ali's like, do you ever get over losing that person on your last mission? And she's like, no. Do you ever get over losing your child? And he's like, no. It's like, well, I hope both of us have some sort of journey where we get to resolve those issues together. And shock horror, by the time they get to the end of the movie, Scarlett Johansson has discovered that she cares about something more than money, and Mahershala Ali has had the opportunity to save a bunch of children, therefore redeeming him of what he feels the guilt for the loss of his children. Again, not an actual arc. That an actual arc would have to have like setup, development, and payoff.
Yeah.
But it is like the idea of an arc, which is so much more than any of the characters in the Jurassic World movie.
It gestured towards an arc, and that is something.
Yeah, and like so that's where we're at. Where it's like the standards on this franchise are so low that it's like this impresses me. So yeah, no, I did love this movie. I'm not going to recommend it to anybody who's like, I don't know if I want to see a Jurassic Park movie. But if you are somebody who's going to see a Jurassic Park movie, I will say, I think this is certainly in the top 3. I think it is far worse than the original. I think it is less well made than The Lost World, which is a messy movie. And I think it's this is fine as far as like big budget dinosaur movies go. Like,
What I will say is, isn't that the saddest thing? Is like this should be the easiest sell in the world. Humans and wonderful giant dinosaurs. These movies should make themselves.
But I don't want to shout out like again, Jesse Schwab, who's like fantastic. He's on the team. He does the ending on the backdrop videos. He pointed out that like it's really interesting that a lot of the movie comes from, obviously it's written by David Koepp, who's the guy who wrote the original Jurassic Park, partnered with Spielberg a great deal in the 90s. This year he did the 2 Soderbergh movies. He did Presence and he did Black Bag, I believe. I know he definitely did Presence anyway. But Koepp basically, it's very telling, and Jesse pointed this out, that like this movie is just leftovers from like what Koepp left out of his adaptation of Jurassic Park, where the idea of like the pharmaceutical company comes from Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, because if you read any Crichton's like, can I cram some industrial espionage into this cool dinosaur movie? And the second thing is like the T-Rex sequence with the raft, which is, I would argue, is maybe the best sequence in the film. Is lifted directly from the novel and was a thing that they couldn't get into the original Jurassic Park film. So there is like, I think it's very interesting that like this is reheated leftovers of stuff Koepp couldn't get into a movie at this stage 32 years ago, and it's like one of the best things the franchise has done in that time.
Jesse, what are you thinking? Faint praise.
The best it's done is the reheated leftovers of something that's been in the freezer for 30 years. Yeah. I honestly, that's a great way to put it. It probably is the third best, which is bottom shelf. Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much of like, they're supposed to like, they're like a ragtag group of scoundrels. Like they're obviously building for that. And to your point, absolutely. Here is the cliff notes of what a character arc should be. We will directly address.
Not on a boat, which is a standing set. So if we need to do this in post-production, we need to tie this up, we could do it cheaply rather than on location. But yeah,
which they 100% do, because there are some lines of dialogue that is only the back of a head and someone talking in a slightly different mic.
They spend so much time on the boat, by the way. Like that is one of the big problems with the movie, is they take so long to get to the island, because you could tell that they're like, okay, we can't like reshoot the island footage because that would involve flying them to the island, but we have the boat and a green screen, so let's just cram as much crap into that first half and hope that it makes the rest of the movie make sense. It's very obviously a kind of a stitched together movie. Sorry, Jesse.
No, absolutely. And I did not know it was a rush production. I was like, it's out. Okay, I guess I'll see it. It has dinosaurs, and it's for work. Like that.
Throw us into this. Like this is not our fault.
Yeah. Look, this was a business expense. I was not going to watch the 7th Jurassic Park movie with my hard-earned money, and I am not going to recommend anyone else does either.
The best way, like, with his little suit and tie to the cinema, it's like, yep, I'm here on business.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but knowing it was a rush production makes a lot of sense, because there are so many dumb things that you can see. Like from an autopsy perspective, it's an interesting movie because there are dumb things that are clear were in the script. Like there is a scene, spoilers, where 4 people fall in the same hole despite everyone seeing the person in front of them fall in that hole.
Beautiful.
That means they were dumb enough to write it down in the script. There is also dumb stuff that was clearly like miscommunication, or we don't have the money to fix this because we did not pre-production this hard enough. The raft scene is kind of fun. I agree. However, it ends with the T-Rex just booping his snoot and going, shucks, and leaves. There was no reason for that to end there. Other than
there was a little gap? Yeah, what if there was a little gap the T-Rex could...
And he could have walked right around it. He clearly could have walked right around it and was just like, guess I'm done here. This snack ain't enough for this potato chip. Like, and it's just that. So like in the script, it says boop, snoots, and leaves. And like, that's it. And like, nobody made a better visual representation for that. It is baffling how many things are not well done in that regard.
So you're saying like the build up, the build up of the tension was resolved poorly there. Where it's like, oh, we have this wonderful chase scene. Oh, it's so tense, and now it's over. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, it's over. Yeah.
Vibe is that like this was
of release.
turned around incredibly quickly. Like it is very much like it does feel like it was written on the back of a cocktail napkin. Like where it's like, here's how you make a Jurassic Park movie. It's a great starting point for you guys. Like, okay, we're shooting in 2 days.
You have to give these to an actual writer now.
But like to give the movie some defense and some credit, which I hate that I'm doing, by the way. Like I'm aware
Just let
that
it be bad.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, why do I feel the need to speak at this movie's defense? Like, I do think Edwards, to his credit, like does what he's paid to do, which is to like shoot a Jurassic Park movie in 3 weeks. And I think like there are some like again to Jesse's point, like Jesse pointed the fact that you can feel that this movie comes together very quickly because of like the story decisions. You can also feel it in terms of like the way that it's shot, because like Edwards is a director who is, I would argue his weakness is storytelling. He's not generally great at storytelling. He is very good at things like visual style and scale. Like Edwards is very good at giving you a sense of this thing is big. And that to me is like a good fit in theory for a dinosaur movie, because you like to know the dinosaurs are big. It's very telling that like another one of the more impressive moments in the movie is, oh my God, the dinosaurs are big. But like, it's very telling that he, to Jesse's point, had no time to finesse what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there are like 2 or 3 really good visual ideas in the movie. Like there's a moment where a character like pulls a rope and they're trying to rescue another character, and it turns out the character's in the jaws of a dinosaur. And you're like, that is a really clever visual like way of getting a dinosaur into a shot, and it catches the audience off guard. And then he does it like once or twice more, and you're like, oh, he really didn't have that many other ideas. Or there are moments where like it's revealed that the dinosaurs are in the background of the shot and have been there all along when they start moving. Like, oh my God, that was a dinosaur, which is a great trick the first 5 times it happens. But like once, like it becomes very clear very quickly that Edwards like only had enough time to finesse 2 or 3 visual ideas before they had to like yell action and start shooting. It does feel like a movie that, came together really quickly on the fly.
Yeah, absolutely feels that way.
Yeah, and like for my part, my review of the movie is, even though it's a tax write-off for me, I didn't see it.
I could not be bothered.
Yeah. Jack, you won. Honestly, I what I will say, the review of the movie is the best way to watch this is for free and while distracted, because you're going to look over.
That's so mean.
It is mean, but it's true, because you're going to be doing something you enjoy doing. You're going to be talking at a friend's house or something, at a potluck or whatever. You're going to look over and go, oh, that's interesting. The T-Rex is chasing people in an inflatable raft. Oh, this is kind of fun. I wonder how they got in this situation. If you knew, it wouldn't make any difference. The only thing that matters is what's happening right then. It has no usefulness to know how they got there or where they're going.
I mean, we haven't even talked about like the children in this movie, where like it is very clear, to the point of this being written incredibly quickly. Like it's very clear that Kep handed them the handkerchiefs, and they're like, usually in a Jurassic Park movie, there's like kids, because like these are movies for kids. We like to take families to them, and it's very obvious that Kep responded by going, "Oh, sorry, hold on, you forgot this other napkin," and just scribbles something down and hands it them. Where like there is a family in this movie that like spend a grand total of maybe 3.5 minutes interacting with Mahershala Ali and Scarlett Johansson, and we're all clearly A, cheaper, and B, shot out entirely separately from the rest of the cast, because like you need to have children in your Jurassic Park movie. Like the point where like justifying how the children end up in the Jurassic Park movie is, what if their dad was on a boat and sailed through dinosaur infected waters, and that's what we got.
And
here.
that's it.
That's it.
That's the pitch. That is literally the pitch. It's like he's on a boat, and they're like, "Dad, are you sure it's a good idea for us to be sailing through dinosaur infested waters?" Like,
sure, why not?
Well, he does be like, "There's no dinosaurs." Like that's
he's a dinosaur denier.
Yeah, he's kind of an anti-vaxxer of the dinosaurs are here. He's like, no, that's not real.
I don't know that that's in the script, Jesse. I don't know that's what Kep was going for with that. Kep's like, and I got some biting social commentary in there too. Like,
yeah. Oh, I don't know how much detail you want to go into all the dumb things that are in there.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of dumb things, but like, it is the fact that children have been
the
perishing.
podcast, Jesse.
Okay, can I
Into
point
all the
something out
details
then?
you
That was on the napkins, that was on some napkins and then left off in others. So the dad in the boat hurts his foot so bad in the initial mosasaur attack. Well, on the big boat, because there's a first mosasaur attack before that, where he's like, he says, "Oh, I can't move my leg," because he wants to help one of his kids, but he physically can't move. Right. Oh no! What a source of tension. He can't move his leg. They get knocked off the boat. They go to the island. Guess who's just up and walking like everything's fine? The dad. Few scenes later,
swim to shore. By the way,
he swam to shore. Yeah, he swam. He's got 3 other limbs. Maybe he could have made it, but he gets there and he's fine. He's walking around. Yeah. A little while later, he complains about his leg hurting, but doesn't stop. A few scenes later, he's like, "Everybody, I've got to get a walking stick," and he like makes a stick and he's like walking with it. It's like, oh, so his legs hurt again now? Like he was fine again, and like he's like climbing things, and now he's got a stick, and then later he's doing fine and running at the end of the movie, which it makes no sense. And the thing is, like, okay, I could understand that somewhere in the napkins that did not get caught was the dad hurts his leg. But the payoff is, at some point, there's a deleted scene where the dad's like, "Leave me. I'm just slowing you down." And the kids are like, "No, we won't." Because at the end of the film, the dad is the one, spoilers, that drives the boat away because he knows how to drive a boat.
Okay.
And he's not like actively shooting at a dinosaur or whatever. So like, it would make sense that like, oh, you know, we helped him along. We wouldn't, you know, we're not leaving you behind, even though you hurt your leg. Yeah, it's a burden right now, but you know, it's worth it. And then it pays off at the end. No, there's none of that. Not even a thought of it.
I mean, there is also the very obvious, like, one of the 2 main characters in this movie was meant to heroically sacrifice themselves at the end of the movie, but test audiences didn't like that.
God, what a terrible scene. That was so...
It's so great. It's like, it's so great because it's like, he's doing the heroic sacrifice, and they're like, "We got away. What if we go back for him?"
And he's just fine.
How? At what point does that negate the heroic sacrifice? Like, if I had heroically sacrificed myself so that these people could escape, and I saw them turning around to come get me, I would be angry. I'd be dead, but I would be angry.
Interesting.
Which, that scene, I do think this film deserves an award, and that award is for the most undeserved musical stings in a movie. Because there are so many moments of like swelling music that's like, this is the serious part. Oh, you really gotta feel it. And it's like, care? Like, who? I'm not sure I know this person's name. There is so much of that where the movie is like clearly like guiding you in.
Yeah.
To be like, this is the emotion you're supposed to feel right here. Come on in. And it's like, no, that's not how I feel.
What's the name of the adorable dino they give the little girl? It's like Dolores.
The Protoceratops?
Yes, but what's her name? They actually name her. They give her a name.
It's Dolly. Like Dolores?
Dolores. There, yeah, that's exactly. You could like, again, that's one of the things on the napkin is the kids should have an adorable dinosaur sidekick that we can presumably market and sell.
Will Dolores do literally anything to the plot? No.
Mm-hmm.
No, because she's very obviously added in post, like with CGI. Like,
all right. Well, I think we have your feelings on Jurassic World Renaissance?
Rebirth.
Rebirth. It was one of those words I couldn't remember.
But it's not. Like, the thing is, why is this a Jurassic World movie? Why is this not Jurassic Park Rebirth? Right? Because it's like it feels like they're trying to get away from the Trevorrow films, even though those movies made $1 billion a piece. It's just weird that they're like Jurassic World Rebirth. It's like not Jurassic Park Rebirth. It's not like we're finally circling back to the one movie that everybody actually likes. Sorry.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I'm going to, before we get into Superman talk, I'm going to draw that out a little bit as I read some super chats. Super chats before Superman.
Brilliant.
Quisifuffle, thanks for the super chat. Who says, "Darren, it is I, Papa John's. Here is your advertising revenue for your coverage during the NBA Finals. Advertising dollars are available for NBA Summer League or NFL training camp."
Andrew decided as a bit on the podcast to just, because he's up minding his child at 3 a.m. in the morning Irish time, and the only sport that he can watch at 3 a.m. in the morning Irish time is American NBA finals, he decided to spontaneously announce that Papa John's, of all companies, to be clear, Papa John's,
the bad one, putting that out there.
I know, but he was like, I feel like that's a good fit for this, and I'm like, A, they're not giving us any money, and B, I'm not sure they are a good fit. But it was like, so I think for about 4 or 5 weeks, and because we record a podcast that is not like weekly, in that like we cover movies out of order, his updates are also very obviously out of order. But he committed to the bit. To give Andrew credit, he committed wholeheartedly to the bit, and people seem to I've gotten feedback from people who genuinely love it, and I think it's great, but I'm like, nobody in the world but me is going to find this funny. But apparently people do. I'm delighted.
That's great. That is great. Let's see here. Dead Pirate Mittens says, Darren, on today's backdrop, you stated that Lost World has the best cut in cinema history. To which scene are you referring? Love your insights.
Thank you. I may have been using hyperbole. I do think it is one of the best cuts in cinema history, and that's the moment where you go from, if you remember the start of The Lost World, the little girl is attacked by the tiny dinosaurs, and you see the mother rush into shot, and you see her open her mouth and start screaming, and you cut to Jeff Goldblum in the New York subway, yawning with the like getaway tropical advertisement behind him. And it is like so much of what I like about The Lost World, not to get into a tangent about like The Lost World and why I think The Lost World, for all its problems, is the best Jurassic Park sequel, is that it is very obviously Spielberg being like, do I have to make a Jurassic Park sequel? Like, it's like, I think he said like the reason he did it is because like they made Jaws sequels without him, and he was like, I kind of wanted to try it and see if it would work, because obviously he'd done sequels with Indiana Jones, but that's him and George Lucas, and that's a very different dynamic. Where like with Lucas, like Spielberg can actually go, it's not my fault. I didn't want to do that. That was all George's idea. And George Lucas, to his credit, when you cut to him in the documentary interview, he'll go, I thought it was a great idea. Like it's like, so I like the Spielberg Lucas partnership's great because it's the only person in the world who is Spielberg's equal and whom Spielberg can kind of heap on blame when stuff doesn't work. Whereas so The Lost World is like Spielberg going and making a proper sequel to his own movie where he is the only creative really accountable for it. And like there is an energy to that movie of like, I really shouldn't have agreed to do this, and I don't want to do this, and why am I doing this? Where it's just, it's darker, it's more unpleasant, and the characters are all like terrible people. Where like even Vince Vaughn, who is like the animal rights activist, at one point all but turns the camera and says, charity work was last year. This year's about getting paid. And I'm like, okay, Stephen. But yeah, no, I have a huge soft spot for the meanness of The Lost World. The sequence with the T-Rex with the like the doggy house dangling from its teeth. The bit where they like tear Richard Schiff in half, break him like he's a biscuit. I believe it is the first time that you see a human character kill a dinosaur in these movies. Is the moment when Jeff Goldblum's daughter like gymnasts a raptor to death. But yeah, really, really mean movie.
And so what was the best cut in it was the yawn.
Gotcha.
The yawn is the best cut in cinema history in The Lost World. And you know what? I'm going to agree. I think that's a great cut. Let's see here. Pure Pyro says, your thoughts on Monkey Shines and The Dark Half. I know of neither of those things.
They're not ringing a bell for me.
Okay, I am feeling embarrassed here. I'm going to feel like I'm going to Google this.
I'm guessing it's an anime. That sounds like an anime.
No, it's the Symbols. It's the Monkey Symbols movie. It's the one that was the inspiration for the monkey, or the one that like people cited as an inspiration for the monkey. I have not seen Monkey Shines. I feel very embarrassed by this. That's George A. Romero. I need to watch this. Thank you, listener.
Thank you, Piero. Monkey Shines and Dark Half.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, like George A. Romero monkey movie. Yeah,
great.
I'm in. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Sussy Guru says they should make a big Conan crossover movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conan O'Brien, Arthur Conan Doyle, and Detective Conan. I love it. I genuinely think there is a fun movie to be made out of a King Conan, like a barbarian warrior turned king who is so bored at being king they know they're about to die and they want to die in battle. I think there is a good meaty story to be made there.
And you have Schwarzenegger as well, who was like king of the 90s blockbusters, just having a chance to go and reflect on his kingdom, where like he got to do like Schwarzenegger got to do everything that he could reasonably have expected to do with his career. What does it mean for him to look back on it? Because it's not like he's a failure. It's not like his life is tragic. You know, there are obviously bumps along the way and stuff, but there is this sense of like looking over his domain and weeping. I think it would actually be very interesting to do. And I think Schwarzenegger, to his credit, is a much better actor than he was. I think, like, obviously his presence was always, he was a movie star. He always had this raw energy and he always understood his image in a really interesting way. But he was not Laurence Olivier. Let's just put it that way. And I do feel like as he's gotten older, he does have this kind of pathos that accrues to him. I think 2 weeks ago we talked about Maggie, which is the zombie movie with Abigail Breslin, where he plays the father who is tending to the daughter who's like being zombified. And it's like, you know, I wouldn't give him an Oscar for it, but it's like, I didn't think he had that in him 20 years ago, or even 10 years before that movie came out. So yeah, I would be game for that.
I think that's a brilliant idea for a movie, and I think that's a really interesting thing for like specifically how it ties to Schwarzenegger. I think the movie would be worse by putting Schwarzenegger in the role instead of a good actor. Even though I do agree he's better than he was. But like, there is no world in where there isn't a better person for that role than Schwarzenegger.
You're just going to cast, like, is it Ralph Fiennes from The Return? And by the way, I need Eric to Google Ralph Fiennes from The Return and put it in the corner of the screen, just so listeners can see that I am not being sarcastic. Because it sounds like a bit when I'm like, Ralph Fiennes should play King Conan.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Wait, I got to see this picture.
We're gonna see it, you know, sometime.
We may be Eric light at the moment. I think. Have we lost Eric?
That happens.
Okay, I'll Google it and share it in the chat, so you guys continue talking there. Hold on.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Right. Well, and I guess for me, I think Arnold is genuinely a very good actor. I think he has moments in just about every movie he's been in that his charisma, his pure charm and charisma makes him like, there is no world in which Kindergarten Cop should work. You should not believe him. By the way, Kindergarten Cop, I'm gonna die in this hill. It's a fantastic movie. There's no way he should be believable in that role or sympathetic in that role, and because he is, I think he has amazing chops as an actor. So I think him doing that role would add that layer, like Darren said, about like looking over. Oh my God, Ralph Fiennes!
Whoa,
they should call him Ralph Fine.
Damn, dog.
They should.
We can objectify men on this podcast, right? It's fine.
And ladies, I'm okay with them. A good-looking person's a good-looking person.
But I saw, like, when I watched The Return, which is to be like, The Return is not an action movie. It's not like Kingsman. It's like it's an adaptation. It's a talky adaptation of The Odyssey that was released like 2 days before Nolan's like, I'm making The Odyssey, which has to be like the most deflating thing for a filmmaker to do. It's like, I worked for 20 years to make my adaptation of The Odyssey, and then Christopher Nolan comes along. But he plays Odysseus, who has returned, and he spends a lot of the movie shirtless, and I'm like, Rafe, baby, you didn't need to do this. That's like,
it's like Daniel.
I don't love you
Radcliffe
for
and
your
Weird
body,
Al.
yeah.
But I don't love you for your body, but
I do love your body.
All right. Well, let's get into our main point of conversation here. Superman, adding to the list of remakes that just have the same title as other movies, making things significantly more confusing for future historians, as this will now forever be Superman 2025, which I hate. Just put another name in there. I hate it when movies have the same name. I hate it when video games have the same name. It makes it very confusing.
I agree. Should be illegal.
It should be illegal. You would think. Just have a little colon.
SEO. It's SEO, right? That's the thing. It is SEO. That's the I wish I were kidding. I wish that were me being flippant or sarcastic, but I'm like 90% certain it's SEO. Look at you,
are 100. Oh, look at me! I'm Superman!
Oh, wow, look you go!
Oh, look at this! I can even move. It,
I can even move.
well, if I didn't think it would follow me, like look at that. Whee! You were 100% right. It is just search engine optimization. Banking off of the Superman name. I'm going to start with this one, which is that on my scale of buncha crunch to nuncha crunch, I give it a solid buncha crunch. I had a really phenomenal time watching it. I think it was really great, really fun. My really hot take is maybe too much dog. I understand why the dog is there. I just thought there might have been a little too much dog. I was genuinely surprised by how much I enjoyed the movie going experience. Darren, I understand you feel differently from me about that. So we're going to delay gratification a little bit and first go to Jesse, and because I don't necessarily know how Jesse feels about it.
Wow. Well, now I can't just piggyback off what smarter people say. I gotta go before there. All right.
You've got to be the smarter person, Jesse.
It's okay. It's okay to truncate. You know.
Fine. Like, is that? I feel like that's
fine. It's
that's
okay.
like where
by the way, so it's buncha crunch, nuncha crunch, but also sumpcha crunch has been in there. If you wanted to give that,
I feel like Sumptia Crunch makes it sound like I had a more enjoyable time than I did, even
Am I
though
the only one that liked it.
You in the world.
You were
maybe...
not the only person who liked it, Jack. Lots of people liked it. Lots of people had a great time with it, and I'm delighted for them. Yeah,
I'm the only one here that liked Superman. Okay, I'm getting ready to defend it. All right, I'm ready. All right,
it's like unbuttoning the shirt. Yeah. Hashtag super shit.
Okay, go ahead, Jesse. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was just fine. Like we're in Jurassic World. You had the we're gonna mention that there is a story arc, and then it's sort of going to hit the beats, but not really. We're just gonna mention that this is where they should be. It did have beats, kind of. I didn't think they amounted to much. Like there's the thing with the robots. Are they these little robots at the guys? It's like, oh, we have no emotion and we can't do anything. And it's like, okay. And then they're like, I would like a name at the end. And it's like, but didn't you just okay, that's fine. But
punchline is he doesn't give them a name, which is I get that it's a joke, but Superman is not an asshole. The punchline of that joke is Peacemaker saying 4 is a name. Superman's response to that should probably be yeah, okay, Paul, you could be Paul.
100%. And so things happened, but I don't know, it just wasn't enjoyable in a lot of ways. I did like the one thing. Okay, things I did like. That it just starts. It goes 30 years ago, alien landed on planet. 3 hours ago, this happened. 3 minutes ago, he got beat to shit. And then the movie starts. And that was really good. It was we do not need the origin of Superman. I am an extremely passive Superman knowledgeable person. I have seen and read so little, and even I know that. It's cool to just move forward. So I did like that. I thought it had a really good starting point. And I really liked their introduction of the Justice Gang and the roles they played in the movie.
Yeah.
And how they worked. And I thought they were great. And I thought that was cool. But the actual movie was just fine. It hit every beat. But it was how AI music technically stays on beat, but you don't feel it.
Wow,
it's kind of how it felt.
It's better than AI music.
I think I'm going to be mean to Superman in this podcast.
But it was better than Jurassic World.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. They're putting that on the poster.
Yeah, definitely better. But it felt like a lot of going through motions. It really so few things hit that felt good.
Oh man, it's phenomenal that as humans we can experience art differently. Let's just take a moment to appreciate us as different, because to me, I felt a lot of emotional weight here. I really I compare this a lot to or I'm comparing like the arc a little bit to the Batman, to like kind of how, you know, the whole point at the end of the Batman was like, oh, you can't just punch criminals, you have to be kind of a symbol for people.
Yeah.
And I think that in the Batman they handled that really poorly, where they just had him jump into some water and now everyone loves him. But it was like one action and everybody loves him.
Child, like he saves. Like I will point out, the one thing Superman fails to do in this movie is save the child at the end of the movie who needs saving. Superman outsources it at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Batman's like, I'm gonna jump in and actually save the child.
And I like
Wait
that.
a minute.
I like that
he outsources the
it.
child. No,
He
we can get into that.
one child after saving several other children.
The child, but it's the child that the movie follows. The child who builds the little Superman flag.
Right.
Like
because Superman has spent the rest of the movie inspiring other people, literally doing the work that Batman did not do, Superman does through the entire movie. So by the end of it, his teammates, his friends are inspired by him, showing way more work than the Batman did. Batman just jumped into some water.
the idea that like Superman is better because he's a manager. That's your argument here. It's like Superman delegated much more efficiently.
He led by example so that others could autonomously of him micromanaging also do good. I don't understand the disconnect here. He is literally spreading the ideals of goodness amongst his friends.
Isn't that what Jor-El suggests that he should do, Jack? Is that what the kids are calling it these days? Sorry.
Okay, so that was just a counterpoint to that one point. Darren, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the thing where I feel really deflated by this because I am a big James Gunn fan. I think Gunn is one of the best directors working comic book movies today. I think, like, I lean over my letterbox. I have not rated one solo theatrical Gunn movie below 4 stars. Sorry, movie 43, you don't sneak in there. I've rated them all with hearts. I think The Suicide Squad is maybe the best live-action superhero movie in the past 7 years, second only to the 2 Spider-Verse movies as the best superhero movies of the past, 7 years. So I hold Gunn in high regard, and I'm a big Superman fan. I think Superman has not been well-served in movies, generally speaking, in that I think the last good Superman movie was released in 1978, unless we count, the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, which is more of a, I see the potential than, yeah, this is a home run movie. But I think the rest of them have, to varying degrees, not been good. But I am rooting for Superman. And to be honest, in terms of Superman media, I recently I did a video essay on Superman and Lois, which is a TV show that I love, starring Tyler Hoechlin. Yeah. And I also really loved My Adventures with Superman as well, the anime take. So I'm open to loving Superman. I'm open to loving James Gunn. In fact, I go in expecting both of these. I think when the movie was announced, I was like, this is the dream. It's Superman directed by the best comic book movie director working today. And I will say I was the most dejected I have been coming out of a movie in a very long time. In part because when I generally go and see a bad movie, I'm like, I kind of expect it. There is a tempering of expectations. There is an understanding that the Flash is probably never going to be good. There is no good version of the Flash, so why should I get my hopes up? Manage expectations, Darren, and you'll never be disappointed.
What if I go into in a microwave? That's all I'm saying.
I'm like this Captain America movie has a red Hulk. He's a Hulk and he's red. But what I found the darkest thought I had watching this movie in the back of my head, a little whisper that grew to a roar as the movie built to its conclusion was, oh my God, what if 2 years ago, when James Gunn said that he thought The Flash was one of the best superhero movies ever made, he wasn't just lying because it was made by the company that he was making. What if he actually believed that The Flash was one of the best superhero movies ever made? Where I really did not care for this movie, and I found myself thrown out. I found that it didn't work in ways that were both large and small. It didn't work in terms of telling a story, and it didn't work in terms of being a Superman movie, either of which would be fine, but both of them together for me are catastrophic. So talk in terms of, a film, a story.
Yeah.
What is this movie about? There are 4 things that you could argue that this movie is about. The first of which is the one that Jesse referenced, which is the opening title, which announces 3 minutes ago, Superman lost his first fight. What does it mean for Superman to lose? That is a good basis for a movie. You can build a movie around that, and you can use it to explore all sorts of things. You can use it to explore the big idea of, like, what does it mean to be at the end of American exceptionalism? What does it mean to be in an era of superhero decline? What does it mean that Superman hasn't had a good movie adaptation since 1978? It's a good, like, basis for a Superman movie. The only problem is the movie refuses to actually show Superman losing. You're introduced at the end of the fight, so you don't see him taking the beating. You don't see the consequences of him losing. Like, what is the Hammer of Baravia doing while Superman is being repaired? Is he just floating in the sky over Metropolis? One of my big issues with the movie is that nothing has object permanence. Nothing in this movie exists when it is not on screen. So, like, where are the Justice Gang while the Hammer of Baravia is, like, seemingly hovering over Metropolis, not causing anybody any harm, and there's no consequences? Oh, they don't exist yet because they haven't appeared on screen. Why does the kaiju suddenly get so big in the middle of a public park with no trail of destruction indicating that it has grown to get there? Oh, because it didn't exist between the cut of it leaving the van as a small baby and the cut to it being a giant monster in the park. But, like, yeah, the movie refuses to show that, and it refuses to show the consequences of it, so there's no sense of weight to the idea of, like, what if Superman loses? What does it mean if Superman loses? What does it mean for us, and why should we care? That's the first thing that it fails to do. Second thing that it fails to do. Is this a story about Superman stopping a war? Because that's a lot of what the narrative thrust of this movie is. The idea that Superman intervened in a war between two global powers and caused an international incident which destabilized global affairs. And there's this big debate about whether or not Superman has the right to do that, right? Yeah. And you can do that with a Superman movie. I would argue it's a potentially silly thing to do with a Superman movie because the only way to do that is to actually, like, send Superman to Congress, and we know how that goes. But, like, you can't, like, the movie refuses to unpack that, right? It fails to show Superman stopping a war twice. Twice. It has two opportunities to show us Superman actually stopping a war and refuses to do it. Again, for the same reason I think it refuses to show him losing, because that might be controversial and disheartening. So we're told that he intervened and stopped the war, but we don't see that. That's the first instance. And in the second instance, it, like, outsources the idea of, like, saving a foreign child, saving a child waving a Superman flag, to the comic relief of the movie. And I get what you're saying, the idea that Superman inspires people, but Superman has a grand total of one scene with Guy Gardner in this movie, if I remember correctly, and then another scene of Guy Gardner looking at television that is showing Superman on it. It's like, I don't feel like that's an arc. I don't feel like Guy Gardner, as a viewer, has been, like, transformed through the gospel of Superman. And third thing that it could be about, but fails to be about, is the relationship between Superman and Lois. And look, that's been done before, but it is, like, a goldmine. That is why we mentioned the good Superman movie in 1978 and the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. The reason why those work is because they're Superman and Lois stories. That is an incredible love affair. You have Christopher Reeve and you have, like, Margot Kidder, and they are phenomenal together, and the movie invests in their romance. That is the heart of those movies. You also have the TV show Superman and Lois, and I'd also argue that, like, romance isn't really done in superhero movies anymore. So, like, it's refreshing and exciting. I think the Raimi movies are the last superhero movies that take romance seriously. So I'm like, give me a Superman and Lois love story. And I will say, the one actor in this movie who genuinely impressed me, Rachel Brosnahan. I thought she was very, very good with the material she was given. Only problem is, to get back to the issue with 1 and 2, you don't actually show it on screen. You have the incredible sequence, like, and this sequence is all over the advertising because they realize it's maybe the best scene in the movie. The scene where she interviews Superman, which is obviously an allusion to the 1978 interview, which happens halfway through that film, right? And they have a big argument, right? Between that scene, which occurs in the opening 10, 12 minutes of the movie, and spoiler for Superman, at the end of Superman, Clark and Lois kiss. But between the 100 minutes...
Wait, so Superman survives? Superman wins?
I didn't say that he survives. He gets, like, hit by a golf ball as he's kissing her. It's real, but spoilers for the movie Superman. But yes, towards the end of the movie, as Eric has shown, and as is all over the trailer, there is a wonderful kiss between the two of them, which is great. More people should kiss in movies. I like kissing in movies. I put that on the poster. That's a Darren Money pull quote. Between those two scenes, which happen about 10 minutes from the start and about 2 minutes from the end, Superman and Lois have a grand total of a single conversation in her apartment as the giant squid is taking place outside. She does rescue him from what I would term Minecraft Hades, but Superman is not lucid during that, and she drops him off home to his country bumpkin parents, and then fucks right back off because she's got more important things to be doing. They do not have a conversation. And it's like, you can't convince me that this is a love story between Superman and Lois where the characters interact twice. I'm like, no. No, bad movie. And the fourth and final thing, which is again an interesting thing that I think could be done well and could be done badly, is the idea of this is a week in the life of Superman, right? Because it is clearly structured to be a week in life. Jesse made the point. They don't do the origin this time because everybody knows the origin. When we went to the preview of this, you're all given a copy of like All-Star Superman, in which Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely like distill the Superman origin into like 8 words, which is like doom planet, dying parents, loving couple, Smallville, Kansas, or whatever. Superman. That's all you need to know about like Superman to get it. So it's like, yeah, you can join him in media res, and this is like structured so that it's supposed to be a week, and you watch it. And is very clearly meant to be a movie that is broken up into 5 acts instead of 3. The course of a working week, where you have lines like, I'm turning myself into the DOD tomorrow, or Superman's only been gone less than a day, or the invasion commences tomorrow, where you are meant to be marking time linearly passing through a week. And there are moments in the movie where you're meant to cut hard from the night to the following morning. And in many cases, those cuts are meant to be jokes. So, like, the little creature is released, and then you cut to morning, and it's giant. Or Superman says, I'm going to turn myself into the DOD, and you cut to morning, and his face is being pushed into the ground. But it is very obvious that at some point, somebody, whether Gunn or the studio, got very, very, very nervous about the idea of an unconventionally structured superhero movie. So, they removed all the title cards from the like cut of this movie that went like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is the most cowardly thing you can do. And they also tried to beat the movie into a 3-act structure, even though it was clearly written as a 5-act structure. So it has the rhythms and structures of a standard generic superhero blockbuster, where you build to the bombastic, like wild, like 3rd-act finale in which the entire world is at stake and skyscrapers are tumbling into the abyss, or Minecraft Hades, or whatever you want to call it, and a war is going on at the same time. And it's like, you can't, if you're gonna do the thing of giving me a week in the life of Superman, which is an interesting concept, not the worst idea in the world for you're launching a DCU that's already populated with superhero characters. Let's just follow one of them per week. You can't also do the most generic 3-act superhero structure ever. So I just found myself like just really, really, really deflated by that. And then there's the bigger stuff, like, which is like Jesse mentioned, they skipped the origin, which is great. But if you're skipping the origin, you can't make Jor-El a big part of the movie. Like, you got to choose. You can either have Jor-El, or you can skip the origin. You can't do both, right? And you got this like really awkward stuff where Gunn is making this movie like it is one of his other movies, which is about fan family. So the central thrust of this movie thematically is the idea that Superman doesn't belong to the family to which he's born. His identity is not defined by blood. He's not tied to Krypton. He was raised by the Kents. He is human. And he is their child, and he learned their values from him, just like every other Gunn protagonist, Yeah. That man may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy. Like, basically is what the thrust... And it's a good, solid theme that Gunn has written very, very well across his career, and it's one of the things that I love about his work, and I think he does it very, very well. I think it is disastrous when you try to tie that to an immigrant story, because you end up basically making a story about how immigrants need to come to America and fuck their parents and learn to be proper Americans and like embrace proper American values.
Whoa!
And all those Kryptonians aren't sending us their best, Jack. And I'm sitting there going, is this what we're doing now in the year of our Lord 2025?
Like, that might be a leap too far for that.
He literally says secret harems. Like, it's not as if it's not like we're not implying that Jor-El says go and fuck all the American women. No, like Jor-El quite literally says fuck all the American women. I'm like, I think that's subtext. Like, sorry. This is why I don't. This is why I'm not looking for. This is why I don't want to talk about Superman, because I did not like Superman. I'm sorry.
No, never apologize. Because I'm going to say that I believe. One, I think you are an incredibly you're my favorite critic because of your ways that you can articulate your thoughts and feelings. I don't agree with a lot of them, and that's okay. But you have a very good way of articulating your thoughts and feelings. To me, most I hear all your criticisms, and I think they're very fair criticisms. For my watching, though, none of them really matter. Like, I don't think we need to see that opening fight, with the Hammer of Bavaria or whatever his name was, with the hammer, because We saw the aftermath. We saw the important bit. We cut to the chase. The important bit was that he lost. Who cares about the fight? It would have been nice to start with some punching, but who cares, right?
But like,
We
what does
don't-
that mean for like Metropolis? Like, what does it mean for anybody but Superman? That's like, if so like Jack,
Yeah,
if
please.
Superman loses,
Yeah,
and the only thing that matters about Superman losing is that he has a bloody nose,
yeah.
why is Superman fighting?
If Superman loses,
If the only thing that happens when Superman loses is that he has a
Right.
bloody nose and he feels sore, why is he fighting?
I guess. Oh, okay. So your complaint is that like we don't know. I think it was implied, and I've only seen the movie once, but I believe it was implied that the Hammer was attacking Metropolis. Correct?
I think the Hammer was attacking him. Well, because the Hammer is waiting for him when he gets back to Metropolis, and there's no indication of massive damage. It does seem like the Hammer is specifically attacking him, because obviously,
Yeah.
like slight spoilers for the movie, we discover who the Hammer is and who the Hammer is working for.
Yeah.
But it is like very strange that it's like Superman lost a fight, and the only person that matters to is Superman.
Mhm.
Like that is very strange. That is like for me a very strange thing to start your movie with, where it's like Superman's pride got hurt, and it's like,
Well,
it's like.
and I guess to me that set up, well, like one that sets up kind of our villain of the story, which is that Luthor also only cares about Superman. He has all of these other
Yeah.
plans, but this is a personal thing for Luthor. Luthor is behind the hammer. But to me, it also sets up the important arc of Superman, which is why is Superman good? Right? Like the whole deal with Jor-El and the parents is like, oh, I got this message from my parents. The beginning half of the message says, we want you to go to Earth so you can do as much good as possible. So you can be a bastion of hope. But then we discover later that there is a hidden second side of the message that also says so you can rule over them all and have yourself a good old harem with the human titties. And all that fun stuff. But so what?
That is a verbatim quote. Like that, you want to
Yeah.
imagine, like, Bradley Cooper delivering that
Bradley
line.
Cooper.
It was weird that
Was-
Krypton had cigars, but he pulled one out.
He
to say that line.
Where's the pocket of that robe? That's the question.
Bradley Cooper pulled out a cigar and said, "Get yourself some human ace." But like to me, it was like that was the important through line of Superman. Is Superman at first was fighting for good because that's what he was told to do, and throughout the movie, he discovers that he fights for good because it's what he chooses to do. In my opinion, and so like that fight being solely about him, Superman's pride is a really good starting point.
Like, does Superman ever have the moment where he surrenders his pride? Like, does he have the moment where he gives up? Where like what is the moment where Superman says, "I'm fighting"? Because he's like throughout, he insists that he's fighting for the greater good. Like that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
the whole point with the interview with Lois is that he's defending himself and he's saying, why were you involved?" And it's like, for good. I did it for good, and like,
Right.
and I believe that. I honestly believe. Like, that's the thing where I'm like, the movie is, one or two rewrites and an edit, like for me, away from being like great, being like a
Sure.
properly great
Mhm.
movie.
Sure,
And what
sure.
holds it back for me, just for me, is like cowardice, where it feels like it gets within inches of ideas and then
Mhm.
retreats because you can't do that because you might upset people if you do it. And if you upset people, this movie's not going to make $700 million, and we can't build a shared universe around it. Where like Superman saying to Lois, "I did it because children were dying and it was the right thing to do," is to me a really bold take. Like, it's a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
I would like to see that rendered on screen. I would like to
Mm.
see Superman fighting to save a little child in a war-torn nation that is not America, to prove that he cares as much about children who are overseas as he does about American children. I would love to see that. I would love the movie to show me that. And like, this is one of my big, sorry, I hate that I'm like monopolizing this and turn this into, but one of my big issues.
First of all, Darren, don't apologize. This is the juicy bit that people are gonna froth at. So no.
Yeah, where we're gonna fight like the Hammer of Arabia, like where Jack's like 1A, 2B. I will say one thing I loved several things about the movie, which I will get to.
Yeah.
But one thing I did love is that like Lex is playing Injustice. Lex is doing like
Yeah.
combos like Injustice. I thought that was a very clever idea. But this movie is so stuffed with exposition. It does
Mhm.
so much telling and so little showing. And like part of this is, and this is the thing where it's like, I say the movie is overstuffed with characters and people are like, "Oh, you just hate comic books." And I'm like, yeah, I clearly do hate comic books. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, but I loved the Suicide Squad. And like part of me is like, it does feel like this movie is in some ways a reaction to Gunn's The Suicide Squad not making a lot of money at the box office, where there are things the Suicide Squad does that this movie would be infinitely better if it did, but it doesn't do because it's worried that it might scare off the normies. So I'm thinking like the title cards that mark the day of the weeks, which is something that like Gunn did in The Suicide Squad, which has chapter breaks, which is a little bit pretentious, but apparently doesn't test well with audiences. The other thing might be trusting the audience to follow the characters by showing rather than telling, where the Suicide Squad is packed with characters who have superpowers. And the way that those characters explain their superpowers often involves demonstrating their superpowers, showing the audience what they do rather than sitting down and explaining. So the movie can take its time. So Polka Dot Man can go 45 minutes without talking about his mother for that sort of stuff. The movie doesn't have to introduce Polka Dot Man and have Polka Dot Man say, oh, by the way, my mother tortured me and that's my entire bit. Whereas with Superman, you can sense the anxiety of this movie is packed to the brim with comic book superheroes. Every character in the scene that introduces them has to deliver like 20 words explaining what their deal is. It's like there's the moment when Lex goes to the Fortress of Solitude and he walks to the console and he says, I hate Superman for all the reasons that Lex Luthor normally hates Superman. And then you have the engineer beside him go, I know, Lex. That is why I turned myself into a machine to fight him. And I'm like, find a more elegant way to communicate that idea. Or Guy Gardner, like who has a Green Lantern, which means you have to explain the concept of Green Lantern because presumably audiences didn't flock out to see the Ryan Reynolds movie from 2011. But you have the moment where he meets Guy Gardner in the Stag building after they released the Harem video.
Yeah.
And like Guy Gardner has to deliver the most awkward line where he's like, you got to tell me, buddy. Oh, we lost Jesse. I'm sorry. I did something. that's
no. Eric and I were just talking in the thing. It was like, we think Jesse's frozen, and yeah, as it turns out, he was. Yeah, okay,
he was.
Great, there we go.
But like, yeah, where Guy Gardner kind of walks in, he's like, "Are you a threat to this planet? Because you have to tell me, because it's my job as a Green Lantern, explicitly to protect this planet from alien threats."
Yes.
And it's like that doesn't have anything to do with the plot of this movie. In fact, we just saw you protect this planet from a threat that was not extraterrestrial. You don't need to deliver that line to the camera so the audience understands what your bit is, because you're going to be on a show called Lanterns that will do that in a couple of months. Like so much.
Right.
And there's a moment where like Lex takes like Superman to his, like, as I described it, Minecraft Hades is basically what it is, where he has like Sharon and stuff like that. Yeah. But like he in that scene, right? That scene is the big scene between Lex and Superman. Yeah. That is the scene where the two of them are most directly interacting. Obviously, Superman has gone in and like attacked him about crypto earlier in the movie, but this is the scene where Lex is dominant and Lex has the opportunity to monologue, and Superman has no choice but to listen to him. So there is like, this is the moment where the two of them can interact and we can get a nice juicy scene of what these two characters are and how they relate to one another. You can do basically like what the Dark Knight did with Batman and the Joker in the interrogation room. You can have this is what I believe, this is what I believe, this is why we're ideologically opposed to one another. But instead, because we are in Minecraft Hades, like you literally have to have Nicholas Hoult, one of the great actors of his generation, who is doing like a pretty decent impersonation of the fantastic work that he did on The Great, a wonderful TV show that I'll hardly recommend people check out. But he has to go, so this is an extra dimensional prison that I'm operating here by DOD without any supervision whatsoever. You'll notice that there are all these people in cages, including my ex-girlfriend. By the way, your cellmate, he's going to be Metamorpho. He's another DC superhero. He has the capacity to generate any random element out of his own body. By the way, that includes kryptonite, to which you are allergic. Now, you might be wondering, audience member, how I'm able to coerce Metamorpho into forming that kryptonite in order to subdue you. You'll notice if you look across the way here, Metamorpho also has a baby. His name is Joey, and we're holding him hostage by a man with a gun. So does that answer everybody's question about how this scene is going to play out? And by the time you get all of that out, there is no room for Superman and Lex to have an actual conversation. Like, Luthor literally goes, how am I holding crypto hostage? Cyber squirrels. And it's like, you don't need to explain that. You can show us the cyber squirrels.
And by the way,
you get it. Sorry.
Not only does it not give them any time to actually interact with each other, it also sets up the audience like, and so this bad guy is holding his baby in a cell directly across from your cell, to where if you ever did get better, it would be a pretty straight shot, so you could take out the bad guy and save the baby, in case anyone was wondering how this scene is going to play out later.
Yeah, and I hate that this is where my mind got. Like, I was really trying to love this movie, but as it was happening, I was like, this is all the stuff that Gunn is usually so much better at.
Sure.
Like his Guardians movies and his Suicide Squad movies are just as chocked to the brim with comic book concepts, but they don't need to spend that much time. They trust that you can see what's happening on screen and follow along and get what the deal is and delay the gratification. This movie, to me, feels like it doesn't have that trust in its audience. And part of me is like, I understand it. He's no longer a director. He's a studio chief. And he is no longer just making a movie. He is laying the cornerstone of a cinematic universe. And if this movie fails, and again, like, I am sympathetic to it. If this movie fails, it's not just him on the line. It's not just his failure. It's the failure of all the other people that he has lined up to do projects. You know, the loss of this movie or the failure of this movie means that you're not going to get, you know, the Clayface movie, and everybody who's going to get paid for that is not going to get paid for that. Everybody who like put their career on hold to do that movie is not going to have to end up wasting 2 years of their life. I understand that there's a lot more pressure on him, and I am sympathetic to it, but I'm also like, this is not what I like about how you tell these stories, and I love how you tell these stories. Sorry that.
No, and I think these are phenomenal points. One thing that I will agree with you on is the excessive amount of characters. Not just main characters. Every scene is chocked full of characters, each who seem to get their own little moment, almost none of which are needed. Like, it's great to have extras. Not everyone needs a speaking role.
But I mean, even like, and again, this is the problem where like so much of my complaints about the movie amount to like, if you're going to have Guy Gardner have like a dark midnight of the soul and a crisis of conscience and like be motivated by Superman to be a good person, you need to actually like show that on screen and have a number of interactions that develop an arc that leads in that direction. If you're going to get me to care about the Lois relationship, you have to actually like put Superman and Lois on screen together. And that means that you might not have to get all those scenes with Metamorpho that you wanted to have. You might not get all the Mr. Terrific that you want in the movie.
Not just with Metamorpho. Like, I'm just thinking of even Lex in his little like tower with his 27 little minions. Each of those 27 minions is introduced, has a line.
Has like a personality. Like Otis, you got the mustache good. You got Otis. You got Eve Teschmacher. Like you have like, and even stuff like you mentioned, like the Jor-El stuff. Like the Jor-El stuff, if you took the movie out, that would be much more streamlined.
Yes.
Like if you took the Ken set, like, and again, this is the thing where Jesse made the very good point that like we've seen all this stuff before. You don't need to have Jor-El or the Kents in your movie. And in fact, actually, like, for the first like hour of this movie, I was like, are the Kents not going to be a part of this movie? And I'm like, that's fine with me, by the way.
We got like the speaker phone scene with the Kents. And you know what? That is all I needed, because that was lovely.
Yeah. And then the movie says, no, we're going to hang the emotional heart of two characters that you only saw briefly as a joke on speakerphone, like an hour earlier in the movie. And I'm like, that's not how, for me. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but that's not how it works, you know.
In general, more often than not, I am not a fan of James Gunn's. I don't care for the Guardians movies; they're my least favorite movies. I think he is a phenomenal director. I really dislike him as a writer, usually. I think he telegraphs his jokes way too hard. And he has a style and it's very formulaic. It's why I don't much care for him. I did love the Suicide Squad, and I think season 1 of the Peacemaker might be my favorite piece of superhero live action ever. Like, I think it's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect and brilliant.
And I mean, I loved Creature Commandos as well. Like, I am all in on Gunn aside from like movie 43 and Superman, which is not the bucket you want your like DC movie to land in.
Right. And I guess like for me, a lot, you know, like I'm okay with Superman. I know a little bit about Superman. My biggest catalog of Superman memory is The Adventures of Superman, and then Superman and Justice League in the 90s cartoons. And to me, this movie was a lot of that. It was very cartoon logic. I think like while I very much understand your criticism of things not having object permanence and us not kind of dealing with those consequences, because of the lighter tone of the movie and the quick pace, this was more cartoon than not cartoon. And so I got into that mindset with the movie.
Where like I worry that I am like the worst Superman nerd, because I'm like, when you mentioned like Superman, the Adventures of Superman and Justice League Unlimited, like one of the things I really love about that like run of cartoons is that like they have the Superman problem, which is the problem of writing the perfect man. It's very difficult to do. It's very hard to generate conflict from. And like the real juice of the animated Superman comes from the end of the animated series where he's turned into a puppet by Darkseid and like used to invade Earth, right? But like,
Sure.
if you watch the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited show, there is like Superman has an actual arc in that show, and he has actual tension, and he has actual character flaws, and he has actual like it's a really juicy, meaty portrayal. It's like I wish that was what was here. That like there was this kind of conflicted like person who is wounded and is so powerful, but knows that he can't afford to be wounded because he is so powerful. That like when somebody with his power has those injuries and those scars, that it's dangerous, but he still feels it. And I'm like, that for me is what I loved about the animated Superman. Sorry.
No. And I agree with you there. And so like for me watching this Superman, I liked those little pieces that we got there. Seeing Superman as so good he's naive was lovely. That scene with him and Lois, the mock interview scene, to me
it's the best scene in the movie. Yeah.
Oh, 100% best scene in the movie. You know why? Take Superman down a couple pegs. It's really great.
and tension and drama, and you understand what both characters are saying and why there's like that's the thing where it's like that is the scene that I wanted with like Luthor and Superman, like in the like when they're on Sharon's kind of hovercraft, where I'm like the scene where you have these two characters who have different perspectives and you can understand each of them. Because like you're right, the thing about that sequence is not just like Lois calling Superman out, but it's that Superman is vulnerable in that scene.
Yes.
Like he assumes that he has the power in that scene because he's the one who volunteers for the interview, and he's all very cocky, and he has like you rehearse sound bites in your head, and it very quickly becomes clear that in this conversational dynamic he does not have the power that he's used to having as Superman. And so you get this kind of weird energy where he's defensive and he feels hurt and betrayed. It's like, you're supposed to be my girlfriend, you're supposed to be backing me up, you're supposed to be helping me out here, and she's like, no, I'm actually doing my job because I'm a journalist. Which is a really good conflict between Superman and Lois, and like I wish that there were more of that in the movie.
And I think that's fair. And like, you know, as much as I loved, like, you know, as much as I love action in general, like, you know, the Lois and Mr. Terrific ambush the base scene is a really fun action sequence. Is it the best use of our time in a Superman movie? Maybe not. Like, it's a really fun sequence. Okay, now here's something I'm just thinking of. Lois is absolutely taken aback by the power of Mr. Terrific in that scene, which is weird, like, because she dates Superman.
But they've only been going out for 3 months at that point. Like, and again, like, it would be interesting if you had that develop into, because like that's middle conversation that I mentioned that they have while they're doing the squid fight is taking place outside. And by the way, like for all my criticism of this movie, like I love that Gunn loves comics, and I love that Gunn's love of comics is situated in a very specific milieu where like even now he's like rooted in 1986, 1987, where that squid is the Watchmen squid. And it's like, that's what he's mocking the idea of Watchmen, or he's showing how his movies are different from Watchmen, because if a giant squid came through a wormhole in this universe, Guy Gardner would take care of it. And like the Mr. Terrific ship is the owl ship from Watchmen, for example. Like there's a lot. The Justice Gang lineup led by Guy Gardner is Justice League International from the late 1980s. Like it's very clear that, and obviously like the Jor-El is kind of evil stuff is rooted in stuff like, say, Alan Moore's For the Man Who Is Everything, and is rooted in like John Byrne's like Man of Steel reboot. Like you can watch it and go, I understand where this stuff is coming from, and it's obviously written with a great deal of affection, and I love that about his work, where it does. I don't doubt that a lot of this stuff does come from stuff that he cares about and stuff that he's passionate about, stuff that he's excited to do. But yeah, this is where I feel old-fashioned, and I don't like. I think Jesse had a good point earlier when he said like, we don't need to see the origin again. It's like, I agree with that. We do not need to see the origin again, right?
Mm-hmm.
But part of me is also like, and I want to be clear, this is not a deal breaker. Like, this is not like this is what the movie fails, or there's no version of the movie like this that works. But I did find myself watching it going, this is a Superman movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't it trust itself to be a Superman? Like, why? Superman is the codifier of the superhero. He may not be the first. You'll get a lot of, if I say he's the first, you get a lot of people in chats being like, Darren doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not technically the first, but he is the one who popularized the archetype. When you think of superheroes, you think of Superman. He is one of the iconic American characters, one of the iconic American like mythic figures, and he has never really worked in film outside of that one time in 1978, right? And it's like, he is important culturally. He is
Yes.
like, and I don't mean in the he is important to Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders or David Zaslav. I mean, he is important in American culture in the same way that like George Washington is important in American culture, or Paul Bunyan, right?
Yeah,
And I'm like, I'm watching the movie and I'm wondering, like, why doesn't this movie trust Superman to be enough? Like, why doesn't it trust that, like, Superman is enough of a hook for me to go, I'm invested in this movie, it has stakes, and I want to, like, care about him? And, like, I'm not saying there's a hard limit. I'm saying you could, Crypto, yep, Grant, you could have Crypto. You could have a Green Lantern in there. You know, you could probably have, like, 4 or 5 of these other characters as well. But the fact you have so many of them, and they all kind of crowd Superman out, kind of, like, it kind of deflates me, where it's like, Batman has been able to stand alone in cinema for the better part of like 40 or 50 years. Where like, if Batman shows up in a movie with another superhero, he's doing that superhero a favor. It's like, Man of Steel didn't perform to expectations. All right, Batman's doing us a solid. He's gonna pop in, do a quick round, beat you up a bit, throw you into some urinals. It'll be a great audience. Will love it. $800 million in the bank sold, right?
Yeah.
But like, I just it feels the opposite here. It feels like this movie is like, we don't think Superman's enough, and it's like that is really disarming to me, because it's like, if you're convincing me to watch a Superman movie, why don't you trust me to watch a Superman movie?
Here's, I guess here's my hypothetical question for you. And again, like, I think coming out of this, I think saying this movie is overcrowded, not only is a valid criticism, is correct. This movie is so full, like, Jimmy Olsen gets a significant amount of screen time, which is fine, and it, like, he has a fun little side.
But you pick him over, so like, if you have him, you take out Guy Gardner, like, or if you have Guy Gardner, you take out him. Like, it's like, pick.
Lex Luthor's girlfriend has a significant arc in this movie with Gardner and Harko and Metamorpho.
Like, any of these things are okay on their own, but it's when you combine them together. Like,
correct. Sorry. And so, like, so I think it's valid criticism. It wasn't a deal breaker for me, because I enjoyed the ride. Like, I was there for the ride, and I was there for the lighter tone of it all. But if this movie were called The Justice Gang, would these criticisms be put aside, or do you think there are more structural problems to this? Like, if this was billed as an ensemble, would you have these same criticisms? This is more. I know this is a weird hypothetical question.
Because you're right. I'm mentioning, like, the Suicide Squad is like an example of Gunn doing something. Because the Suicide Squad has a similarly large ensemble. I would argue the Suicide Squad is smaller, and I would argue the Suicide Squad handles that ensemble better. But it's not it's not an invalid point. I think what you would have to do in that case is you would have to, like, pull Superman back more and push, like, Guy Gardner and Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific.
Sure.
No, you leave Mr. Terrific where he is. Like, Mr. Terrific is like the equalizer. He's the level that you want everybody else at. So if each of the 4 members of the Justice Gang, because Superman is like an affiliate member of the Justice Gang, if each of the 4 members in this movie were mixed at the level that Mr. Terrific is, where they each get a cool action sequence, and they each get a couple of beats, and they all get a nice moment where it turns out they're nice people underneath it all and not complete corporate assholes. Yeah, I think that might actually work better. But the irony then is that, like, you're not making a Superman movie anymore. You're making a movie where Superman is like the joint 4th lead, you know?
Oh yeah, no, and I guess in my head I'm just thinking, like, oh, if this were like a 2-parter Justice League Unlimited episode, this would be phenomenal. This is exactly what I'm here for. That's more a more Superman centric, and so I guess, like, a lot of my praises of the movie, really, and this is gonna sound terrible, just comes down to vibes. Like, I really dug the tone of it. I really, the fact that Guy Gardner is using his Green Lantern power to flip off tanks.
The fact to keep his hair, like the fact that he keep his bowl cut from the Justice League International run,
really fun. Action sequence is really interesting and really light of tone. So that's, like, this is what I'm here. This and I think part of it is also I'm not a huge Superman fan. I like Superman, but, like, I'm not deep into Superman lore, right?
Lots of people who like Superman lore are more into this movie. Like, I'm willing to admit I'm in the minority on this. To be fair, it does seem to be international critics. Again, we maybe we don't want to unpack why that is, but it does seem like international critics and audiences are colder on this than American audiences. Irish critics in particular seem to be more negative on this. I don't know why that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. I suspect the immigrant stuff kind of grates us the wrong way. I suspect like the immigrant reading of this movie is very uncomfortable, where it's like, yeah, sure, you can come to America and be a Superman, but yeah, you need to don't fuck any of our women. Don't fuck our women. Which is
I
weird,
didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that.
I mean, I'm open to the possibility if it occurs, but like, it's so weird because like so many of like the recent Superman comics have like introduced Superman's son, which is the product of like Superman and Lois, and in those comics, it's a good thing because it's like two cultures intermingling and coming together, and it's really weird that this is like Sweden in like 1936, where they're like, no, you don't. That's a deep cut reference for all our Scandinavian listeners.
I do like, I think it's interesting. Like, I do think like that, especially that read on like the political importance of, like outside of the movie, the political importance of that specific line of, building a harem and whatnot, where it's like, to me, that was like, right-wing propaganda garbo. That was, the antithesis of Superman, which is what made it interesting. But for you seem to lock onto that. So I thought that was, yeah.
But I mean, I lock into it because like it would be one thing if like Secret Harem was the thing the Fox News came up with. If like Jor-El just said, go to Earth and conquer it and enslave them. And like the Fox News were like, okay, he has secret harems. It's the fact that like in the movie, Gunn has Superman's dad and mom say, by the way, sow those wild oats. And it's because like it is so much of, as you say, a right-wing talking point. This idea that immigrants are coming to the country and going to, and the fact that like so many, this is really depressing. So many like really powerful people in the real world think that this is something that actually happens and is like something that is actually like an evil plan to conquer America. That makes me uncomfortable. And it's like, it doesn't need to be there. You could easily have that scene without the reference to the fucking, particularly because it's like supposedly a family friendly movie.
Well, it was banned in India for being too sensual.
Sensual. Ooh.
If
they don't like the harems in India, not big fans of the harem, secret or otherwise.
For a movie in which Superman Lois kiss exactly 2 times.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah. I mean, he does take off his boots in her apartment. I will actually, to be fair, like, and again, I worry. I want to apologize in advance to any Indian listeners if I get this wrong. But like, it is a big thing in Indian cinema that like your leads have to be chaste. Like, if you watch like a lot of Bollywood cinema, a lot of mainstream family or UA rated films in India, many of them have to be. Like, you can't show a kiss between a male and female lead, which is really interesting.
And Eric is correcting me here. Those scenes were censored.
That makes sense.
In India.
Based on my knowledge.
Interesting, very interesting. So, but it makes sense, and of course, to us,
don't get the like beautiful scene of them. Like again, there is so much of this movie I would love if it was paying stuff off. If that moment of, because the two of them flying together and kissing, like that should like be perfect. But I'm like, they have said a grand total of like 7 words to each other in the past half hour of this movie.
I do like I have criticized Gunn in the past for paying off things that he has not set up.
I love that this is the Gunn movie you're all in. I'm like, this is where we're bizarro. We are in bizarro world, by the way.
I also live in a world. I live in a world of short form improv comedy in which a lot of our work, a lot of the work that we have to do when establishing a scene is just like saying what's going on. Who are you? What's going on? What's happening? And so I guess
I hate Superman. That's why I turned myself into a robot to fight him. It's like perfect. You're like, no notes. I'm like,
well, what I'm learning about myself is that is the side that I lean to. Like, I would rather have just a quick and dirty explanation of what's happening rather than fumbling through it for 5 minutes.
That's fair, but I would also like that when you do that things actually start happening, as opposed to just jumping to another scene where that happens again.
Very, very fair. Very, very fair.
Can I shed out something I did love about this movie? Because I've been a bit harsh on it. I really liked the Supergirl introduction, the Millie Alcock. I really liked that. Like that because it was a really lovely moment and it was really charming. And it's like immediately you understand why we're doing a Supergirl movie, because like the big thing when you hear Gunn is doing Superman and then we're gonna get like, is it Craig Gillespie's Supergirl, you're like, are we just doing boy Superman and girl Superman? Like what's the deal here? I like that within Superman itself, this is like, no, she's a completely different character.
Yeah.
And like she has a completely different set of issues, a completely different set of personalities, and a completely different vibe and energy. Which makes sense based on the comic books, because the idea is that she left Krypton as a teenager rather than leaving as a child. So she is a memory of what Krypton is, and she is traumatized by the experience in a way that he is not.
Correct.
And I also like, and I'm sorry, this is where Darren's like grumpy hack goes on again about this movie, is that I look at Supergirl in that scene, I'm like, there's a character who could have an arc. There's a character who is at the start of a journey that will go somewhere and pay off satisfactorily, where they will learn something and change and positively affect the lives of people around them. And I'm like, that is not what I'm getting from this movie.
Yeah, and again, I think that's a fair criticism. I think that for me, obviously, in Superman, like the little bit of the of the gestured at arc is enough for me, because we also got what did you call it, Minecraft hell, like. Which, yes, that place was very boring. Minecraft Haiti, which, by the way, yes, that was very boring.
I mean, like, there was points where I was watching it and I was like, if this were an actual location with actual stakes that like we had actually developed and actually made sense and was like central to the movie, I would be invested in this, because it's very clever. You're taking Superman, who is a god, and you're sending him to hell. That's a clever idea. And like there are a whole bunch of like ideas in this movie that are very clever. We mentioned the idea of like it's Injustice Superman fighting, like that Lex is playing Injustice, or that like, without getting into too many spoilers, that Ultraman is basically like Black Noir from the Boys comic, which they failed to adapt into the Boys TV show. Gunn is clearly riffing on the idea of like Superman across media in ways that show that, like, again, very thoughtful guy. A lot of big ideas. I think he's very smart. I'm still on board with the DCU, despite really not liking this movie. But the Hades stuff is like, I'm watching that and it's like, this is quite clever, because you've got like the big river Styx in the middle, you've got the Charon guy who's ferrying across, and you have the moment with the black hole, which is, you know, kind of roughly similar to the Song of Orpheus, which is the idea of like, you have to get out, but if you look back, you're going to end up stuck. Like the person's going to turn into a pillar of salt and will be lost to you. And it's like, that is a clever mythic idea, but it does not pay off in any meaningful sense whatsoever. And it just builds to a third act that we get in every superhero movie now, which is a big urban city center is destroyed, but it's somehow completely empty for reasons, because we don't want to think about, as you mentioned, the overreaction to Man of Steel. It's like, we don't want to think about the Snyder of it all. It's like, well, you know what? You could like have a finale that's not set in a major urban center. What if, and hear me out here, you didn't have skyscrapers collapsing in your third act? Crazy, I know. Like,
it's
sorry.
No, and I'm 100% with you. They did the hand wavy. No, we evacuated. Look, we showed all the people evacuating, and he did save exactly one person from falling a building. But it's like that was always a thing I really appreciated about Age of Ultron. Which was like, okay, we have a city being destroyed. Our hero's work is not necessarily stopping the bad guy; it's just saving all of the people, because that's what their mission is, right?
You have the helicarriers landing and loading the civilians out. Like there is a real effort, and like even in, again, not to invoke the name of Whedon positively, but even in like the original Avengers, there are short sequences of like Cap helping like protect people who are running, or deflecting grenades, or like giving orders to firemen and police officers to help people evacuate. And I will say, like, I know that it is a contested subject, obviously, but the opening sequence of like Batman versus Superman, in which like you get to experience the climax of Man of Steel from the ground, as like Bruce Wayne is just an ordinary guy trying to navigate it, and who does literally save a child in that sequence as well. But like that sequence is, to me, like very affecting, and it's like, if you're doing urban devastation, you should approach it like that. You should, like, to your point, you should be aware that these are buildings with people in them, and the hero should be more concerned with like saving people than preventing property damage. Like how, like at the end of this, how does Luthor not end up with multiple death sentences?
Right. We assume he does, but of course it is the cartoon. It's the cartoon of it all, right?
Yeah, he's going to end up in Belle Reve and leading the Legion of Doom in the inevitable Justice League movie, you know?
So like it does err on the side of cartoony, which I'm very okay with, but also like to me one of the greatest sources of tension in a Superman story in general is not whether Superman will make it, because of course he will make it, is can he save all of the people, right? Can he be the person who does the most amount of good? And that's the thing that he strives for. And so, yes, Gunn did a good thing by, we're not going to kill people. They've all evacuated so we can have a big fight here, but also like have Superman help some people.
I mean, like, and again, not to invoke like the one good Superman movie, but part of the magic of like the 1978 Superman is that the climax of that movie is not urban devastation. That happens in Superman 2. I think one of the big problems with the superhero genre is that like Richard Lester's Superman 2 is quietly more influential than Richard Donner's Superman. But at the end of Superman 1, it's Superman versus a natural disaster. Yeah. It's Superman versus, it is caused by a nuclear weapon, but it is basically a series of earthquakes where it's like Superman versus Mother Nature, and you have real stakes. And as you say, it's not urban devastation. It's not punchy kick fly now. It is instead like, how do you save the greatest number of people? And can a Superman do everything? And like, to your point about these being movies for kids, which I agree with, good family-friendly, all-rounded entertainment that kids can enjoy. I say as somebody who loved the Suicide Squad, a very R-rated movie, but like the ending of
a great amount of dong in the Suicide Squad.
Yeah. And like, and again, great for kids age 12 and above. But like, I do want to shout out the thing that like I loved about the 1978 Superman is that the ending of it is Superman can't save everyone. He can't save Lois. And then he pauses and goes, wait a minute. This is a Superman movie. And he just flies backwards around the world in contravention of any logic or sense or reason and saves Lois because it's a Superman movie. Of course he can save everyone. That's the one thing that he does. And I'm like, that for me is like the perfect epitome of like Superman is a hero for children.
Sure.
And I kind of you lose me a bit when it's like we're watching buildings and rubble fall down on people in photorealistic ways.
Sure.
With no offense to Mr. Snyder.
With much offense to Mr. Snyder. I think he massively misunderstood. I don't think he massively misunderstood the character. I think he willfully misunderstood the character, which is fine. That's the story he wanted to tell. You get to do that if you are a director.
That's the joy of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's the job. Yeah, and so like, I do a lot of my good feelings for this movie, like I said, comes down to vibes. It just comes down to what I feel is a giant lever being kind of pulled back into a better direction for superhero movies in general. I think a lot of Marvel movies now like have given up on a little bit of the fun of superheroes, a little bit of the flair, and try to go for very serious with a series of quips mathematically inserted to create the illusion of levity. And the new Superman movie does a really good job of just having that levity. Can I agree that it's not a very deep movie? 100%.
I will say, like, I kind of I like a good light superhero movie as much as anybody. Like, I think Thor Ragnarok is one of the top 5 MCU movies, Darren says, controversially, because that is now a verboten opinion after the release of, like, Love and Thunder. But, like, I do think, like, having good cartoony fun in these movies is great. I like there to be, like, a kind of a good core, a good meaty core to it. Like, you want to bite into that burger, you know?
This was more tapas. This was more like a lot of smaller meals, none of which individually fill you up.
Yeah, I mean, like this is the thing about, like, I mentioned the weekly structure, which I would have admired if they had stuck to it. But part of me also undoubtedly in the back of my head would also have been, why is this a movie? If this isn't the most important week of Superman's, like this is the thing where I understand Gunn, the studio head, having the whisper in his ear and the test scores in front of him and making the choice to try and restructure this like week in the life of Superman movie into an epic 3-act superhero film. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, I do wonder, like, if you're showing me a week in the life of Superman, is that a movie? Like, haven't we got to the point where, like, we need spectacle? Where if the superhero movie is in decline, if superhero fatigue is real, and again, the thing about superhero fatigue, people get very delicate when you use that phrase, get very
Yeah.
sensitive about it. I kind of go with the Lord Miller description. It's not superhero fatigue. It's a movie I've seen 15 times in the past 5 years fatigue, where it's the
Yes.
familiar rhythm and pattern and beats of it. Like,
Yeah.
but if that is the case, what audiences are responding to is like appointment cinema. They're responding to like event cinema, things that are big and spectacle driven. And like the thing that I love about the Donner movie is the Donner movie feels like the biggest movie that was ever made. Like it treats Superman like the Wizard of Oz. It casts like it brings in the writer and the star of The Godfather. The villain is played by fucking like Gene Hackman. Like it takes the assignment of we're making a Superman movie, and it's like we are making the most Superman movie. And like part of me watching this is like this doesn't feel like a big event in a way that I kind of expect a Superman movie to be, because Superman is, as we mentioned, a hugely culturally important hero. But
Yeah.
B, the way that I kind of like in this day and age, if you're trying to say this superhero movie is important, it doesn't feel like an event in the way that something like, I don't know, like the Batman, I guess. But I'm trying to think of like a similarly like huge, I don't want to say Endgame, and I certainly don't want to say Secret Wars and Doomsday, but like it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel momentous in a way that like getting people to a cinema now needs to. So something like Avatar or even Sinners, where Sinners
Sure.
feels like an event of a movie.
I
This
think
to me-
even if you go back to Man of Steel, like the advertising and the marketing around Man of Steel was, we're doing it. We're doing it big.
We are so far in.
You're not only going to believe a man can fly, it's Henry Cavill. Look at that guy.
We're going to hold you down until you admit a man can fly. We're going to work you over until you say nothing but a man can fly.
You're going to beg us to stop making a man fly.
You're right. And like part of me is like, is this a response to that? Like, because there is a reading of this movie, which is like, and I know this is very reductive and you get into stupid fan wars. And I don't like stupid fan wars. I think stupid fan wars are stupid. I think like Man of Steel is Zack Snyder's weakest movie. I think Superman is James Gunn's weakest movie. They can hug and kiss and make up. They're also good friends, and they also worked on like, Dawn of the Dead together. They get along perfectly fine. There's no need to turn this into a them versus them thing. But so much of this movie does feel like a reaction against Man of Steel in a way that like it feels like it's less its own thing than it is a commentary on Man of Steel. Whereas like to your point, Man of Steel is like big, loud, submission. The audience will feel something, and this movie is just like, Superman's a guy. He does some stuff. What do you want from us? It's like he's so just having a tough week. Is our suits?
I can see that as a verdant Man of Steel unenjoyer, which is a sentence that I don't know if it made sense. But
I got you.
Okay, great. Like I am very okay with this being just a response to that, of just being like, we're just gonna have a good time and crack some goof. Superman will punch a robot. It'll be great.
Jack, can I throw like a counterpoint to you?
Yeah.
The good response to like Man of Steel is just not making Man of Steel. Like it's like you don't need to make a response. It's like and I get this. This is the weird thing about like the whole Zack Snyder Man of Steel thing, where it's like I do not like Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
I am more sympathetic to Batman versus Superman and to Zack Snyder's Justice League than a lot of people are. But I'm also like, that was a take on the universe that didn't work. Just it didn't work. It didn't land in the culture. It didn't resonate. It didn't kind of like linger on in the way that these things do. And it's time passed and it's over and done with, right? So before anybody suggests I'm a Snyder head or whatever sort of nonsense is going on here, but I'm like, when you're making something, it needs to be more than just a response to what came before. You can't go, like, it's not really a valid argument for me to go, but I'm not like the other guy. You have to actually, like, make a positive argument. Like,
by the way, Darren, you've just made like one of the most insightful political commentaries, especially for modern day America and perhaps a liberal party, ever made. If they want to listen to that advice, that would be great.
What you're saying is Superman is like the Democrats. See, Superman is woke now, right? But like,
Superman is just waiting for Lex Luthor to do more bad things and hoping people come around without actually doing anything.
But it's like it's like they hope that they'll realize Lex Luthor is bad enough that he doesn't have to make a positive argument in favor of his own existence. But like like that's the thing. It's where like when Nolan makes Batman Begins after the failure of Catwoman and after the failure of Batman and Robin, right?
Mhm.
Sure, a lot of people go, well, that's a reaction against like the campness of Batman and Robin, right? But you look at the movie, and the movie has a reason to exist of itself. It has an argument to make for what Batman is. It exists in its own context. Where you talk about the Nolan Batman movies, and the first thing you say is, and the first thing you don't, the first thing you don't say is, at least it's not Batman and Robin, you know? Or like the Tim Burton Batman, which is a response to the Adam West Batman. And if you talk about the Tim Burton Batman, you go, oh yeah, I remember like all the black leather and like the kinky whip and like the suit where he couldn't turn his body. You don't say, well, at least it wasn't the Adam West Batman. And like part of me is like, it feels so weird that a lot of the context around this movie seems to be, well, at least it's not the Snyder Superman. And I'm like, that's not how you build a viable model for going forward.
That's fair. I think
And you
that's
don't
really,
have to
really
be
fair,
like a
yeah.
Snyder defender to say that. I'm willing to like, the reason why this movie exists is because the Snyder version did not work. That is prima facie. The fact that this movie exists is proof that that did not work. You don't need to relitigate it. You don't need to like prove it. You could just continue on and just make a positive argument for yourself. Sorry, this is why I didn't want to talk about Superman. I'm getting into weird spaces.
No, I think the again, your ability to articulate your thoughts and feelings, bar none, in my opinion, even when I disagree with you, and I think that's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. Why don't we get to some super chats before we talk about some other things we've been watching? Real quick here. That is all of the Superman talk that we can take. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Sir George Lucas has a non-controversial and very important question here. Why is Star Trek Voyager so uneven and weird? Please analyze.
Okay, so this podcast is going to go for about another hour and 15 minutes. I'm sorry.
Oh, God. Darren, one of these days, you and me are just going to do a deep dive into Star Trek Voyager and talk about nothing else. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have a take on this, but I want to hear yours. Like, Jack, you're a big Star Trek guy. What is your Star Trek Voyager take?
Not only am I a big Star Trek guy, I've watched the entirety of Star Trek Voyager several times because I think overall it's pretty good. Obviously, some bad things. I'm going to say that the main writer of Star Trek Voyager, of course, kind of left Star Trek after the pitching process. Went on to do some other fantastic things, if I'm remembering correctly.
Is this Michael Piller who left to make Legend and then got dragged back? Like the Michael Piller story is so fucked up because it's like he was working on Voyager. Mm-hmm. He basically Piller had come in on the third. Sorry, I'm sorry for jumping in on this.
But no, you get this, please.
Piller had come in on the third season of Next Generation. He had supposed to be one of the writers, and I think it was Michael Wagner was supposed to be running the writer's room, except Michael Wagner resigned after like 3 weeks, and Rick Berman was like, Piller, you look like you could do this. You're in charge of the writer's room. I think Piller describes it like, I became head writer over lunch, is the way that he describes the experience. And he basically took charge of Star Trek, and he came up with the way that we think of the Next Generation as being written. And if you watch the Next Generation, first 2 seasons are rocky, third season's where it gets good, and a large part of that's down to Piller like basically whipping the writers into shape. And there were issues with that. There was tension on that. Nearly every writer who worked on that third season like resigned in protest at the end of the season in protest of what Piller was doing. But Piller got that show in shape. Piller also then, as we talk about, led to Deep Space Nine getting made. And when he was working on Deep Space Nine, he had Ira Steven Behr, who was his story editor on the third season Next Generation, and a guy that he trusted. So he handed Deep Space Nine over to Behr, and basically he trusted Behr to do that relatively unsupervised. There's the story of, I believe it's like life support in the third season of Deep Space Nine, where they kill off Vedic Bareil, and Piller like writes a memo saying, I don't think you should kill off Vedic Bareil. I think Vedic Bareil is a really interesting character who has many, many stories left in him. And Ira Steven Behr writes back and says, nope, we're killing him. And Piller goes, okay. I think you've outgrown me. It's like, you're the adult now. Yeah, this is your show. You're in charge, right?
Yeah.
But Piller, basically, he was kind of the father figure. And towards the end of Next Generation, he was overseeing Next Generation, nominally overseeing Deep Space Nine, helping launch Voyager, and was preparing to do the leap from the Next Generation to film. What happened is, when they're making Generations, or the movie that would become Generations, Paramount were like, okay, this is a film now. This is like actual grown-up shit. We're going to need like executives to sit down. You're not running your own little fiefdom now. What we want to do is we want the best script possible. What we want to do is we want to get 2 scripts cooking in a bake-off. So, Michael, we know that you want to write the Next Generation movie and you think that you're qualified to do so because you're the guy who like runs the Next Generation. That's okay. You can write one of the scripts. The other script is going to be written by like Brannon Braga and Ronald D. Moore. And like Pillar is like, well, fuck that shit. It's like I'm not going to compete against two people who I have raised and trained and who are subordinate to me because this is humiliating to both of us. And he says, fine, fuck you guys, I'm out. So he leaves, as you say, basically 6 or 7 episodes into the first season of Star Trek Voyager. UPN is launching at the same time. UPN is looking for TV shows. Pillar goes off and he creates a TV show, Legend, starring John Delancey and Richard Dean Anderson, about an inventor in the Old West. I think it's not Bruce Campbell's in Briscoe County Jr., which is a different show. But basically,
or are you thinking of Jack of all trades?
That's what I made. Because that was shot down under, wasn't it, as well? Like all the Xena's show. Anyway, never mind. We're not gonna get into that. But basically, Pillar leaves. He launches this idea, this Legend show. Legend fails, like every other UPN show that is not Star Trek Voyager in that like first season. And because this is how television works, particularly in the 90s, you have a contract option on a writer as like a broadcaster. So you were able to basically force they have to write for you. And you can negotiate which show you write for, but you are working for that company for a year. So they're like, well, tough shit. We gave you your TV show. You got to come back to the second season of Voyager and run Voyager. And Pillar describes it as like, imagine your dad had like walked out on you, like as you were like 6 years old. And then when you're like 20, your dad's suddenly sitting on the couch going, hey son, how's it been? Like that is what he describes the feeling as being like in the writer's room on the second season, where you have him and Jerry Taylor, who is another one of the hugely influential writers. And Jerry Taylor had been managing the room and had been overseeing Voyager and had very strong ideas of what Voyager wanted to be. And you have this push and pull through the like second season between Pillar and Taylor. And it is so fascinating because Pillar is like, television needs to evolve and move forward. We are in the 90s now. We no longer need to be doing like standalone episodic storytelling. We need to be moving more towards episode arcs and season arcs and recurring villains. The problem is that like while Pillar's instinct on that is correct, his actual like the direction he pushes is bad, because he's like, I have an idea for these villains. They're called the Kazon. They're going to be the coolest thing ever. And what happens is, because of the structure of the season, and this is so fucking weird, Pillar ends up writing a bunch of standalone episodic episodes, which he thinks the show shouldn't be doing. Meanwhile, the episodes that Pillar wants the show to be doing, which are the heavy arc episodes, end up getting assigned to writers like Kenneth Biller and Jerry Taylor, who think that's what the show shouldn't be doing. So you have this weird situation where there are two types of Voyager episode the second season, and they're both written by the person on the writing staff who hates that idea the most. And you can see it like the great example of this is Jerry Taylor, who does like Alliances and Investigations, which are two of the big Kazon episodes. And those episodes are supposed to be, we're building a year-long story about a spy on Voyager and their weird relationship with the Kazon. And the actual text of those stories is, the Kazon are fucking stupid, and why are we doing fucking long-form story arcs anyway? This should be a fun episodic show about cool adventures in space. And it just ends up like imploding to the point where, like, according to Pillar, he has walked into Rick Berman's office at the end of the second season and told that the entire writing staff have threatened to resign unless he resigns himself. So he falls on his own sword and he leaves. He does come back and write Star Trek Insurrection, but that's a story for another time. But then you have the third season, which is overseen by Taylor. Taylor at this point is quite old. She passed away recently. And I want to shout out, like, both of these very good writers in their own right. Every writer gets old. Every writer makes mistakes. It's, I think these people are hugely important to Star Trek. I don't think there are any villains in this story, to be absolutely clear. But Taylor at this point is getting old. She's fought this battle with Pillar. She seems to want to be gone. She seems to want to retire. And that means that, like, they have to choose who's going to run Voyager. And if you believe Brian Fuller, who obviously goes on to create Hannibal and a whole bunch of TV shows that never actually make it to air, or air for a single season, Fuller says that, like, after Taylor left, Rick Berman, who was in charge of the overall Star Trek franchise, looked at what was happening on Deep Space Nine, where you had Ira Stephen Bear, as we already mentioned, who is this kind of like actual producer with decades of experience behind him and like actual ideas about how to run a show, who literally, if he doesn't like your note, will not take your note. There's the famous story about how on Star Trek First Contact, they wanted to destroy the Defiant in the big battle with the Borg, which is the ship from Deep Space Nine, to establish stakes. They wanted to establish stakes by blowing up the ship from Deep Space Nine. And they were like, we ran this by Ira Bear, and Ira Bear said, it's your movie, you can do what you want, but just know, like, the Defiant's going to be back on Deep Space Nine the next week. Like, it's like, you could do it, We just won't acknowledge that it's anything that happened. So like the story according to Fuller is that like Berman was like dealing with this. And to be clear, both Berman and Bear have both done the very polite thing of saying, no, we had a complicated relationship, but it was always built on mutual respect. And we always listened to each other and collaborated. So like there are competing versions of the story. Like, I love that. Yeah, they did eventually blow up the Defiant, as Eric's showing towards the end of the 7th season, Deep Space Nine, but then immediately replaced it with the Sao Paulo, which they rechristened the Defiant so they could use the same sets. But anyway, so the story according to Fuller is that while Berman was having these issues with Bear, he was like, I do not fucking want this shit to happen on Voyager. I don't want like a writer with opinions. So what I'm going to do is I am going to pick a young, inexperienced writer who will do exactly what I tell them to do, when I tell them to do it, and how I tell them to do it. And he picks Brannon Braga, who came to Star Trek as an intern in the 4th season of Star Trek The Next Generation, who had never written outside Star Trek to that point in his career, who I believe had not watched the original series because Gene Roddenberry told him not to watch the original series, to be clear. But Braga was this incredibly talented writer. People trash Braga, and there are reasons to trash Braga. We do not have long enough to go into that. But Braga was like honestly a really great writer. He was a very good high concept science fiction writer. He wrote some of the best episodes of The Next Generation, like Cause and Effect, for example, like Frame of Mind, for example. And he also worked with Ronald D. Moore really, really well. But he was like in his late 20s. He was in no position to be running a writer's room. There's a story that like Chris Black tells about working on the first season of Enterprise with Braga, where what would happen is they have a writer's room, and everybody comes into the writer's room at like 9 a.m. in the morning, including Braga, who is Braga's a writer, not a showrunner, but he's now serving as showrunner. And he'll look at the script for the episode that is going to air or that's going into production the following week. He'll go, this is no good. And he will literally pick the script up and go into his office and work away at it for 12 hours as the writers of the show sit at the conference table, literally twiddling their thumbs as Braga like single-handedly tries to stitch the show back into shape because he's a writer, not an experienced showrunner. And it is obviously really frustrating. If you go back and you look at the first season of Enterprise, by the way, notice that like Braga has writing credits on like 20 of the 26 episodes in that season, which is not how a show should work, by the way. It is not how you get the best work from anybody involved. But yeah, the reason why Voyager ends up being messy is because like it's defined by these conflicts, and you don't have this strong internal sense of direction like you did on Star Trek The Next Generation with Michael Piller, on Deep Space Nine with Bear. I would also point out there's other systemic factors at play, like it was not aired in syndication. Like Deep Space Nine and Next Generation aired in syndication, which meant that the people producing the show didn't have to take notes from networks. They were literally like, here's the episode, air it if you want, don't air it if you don't. Like that's the deal. Whereas
I think that's like the bigger piece to this puzzle is their relationship with their network, with UPN, which was an incredibly shaky network to begin with, who I know threw a ton of curveball their ways. Like, hey, you have to get The Rock in there somehow. I don't care how you get The Rock in there. He's going to be
WWE is so big. Yeah, WWE is so big on UPN. Can we like cross catenate this stuff? Yeah.
I don't care if he's in there for 5 minutes and then your character beats him. We are going to promote it as starring The Rock because it needs.
To be clear, like it gets to the point. Like the story that Braga tells is like as Enterprise is dwindling in the ratings, like the networks start getting more antsy because, like, you know, when Star Trek is performing well, they basically like they let like the writers can do what they want. You trust the writers; they know what they're doing. But like as the show starts performing poorly, and as UPN, as we say, starts getting like into the like we're merging kind of phase, the executives get the point where it's like, well, we have to be doing something, right? So they talk about like Braga and Berman talk about like during the second season of like Enterprise being dragged into meetings with executives. Like there are a couple of stories that Braga tells. Like one of them is the episode Minefield, which is one of the better episodes of the second season of Star Trek Enterprise, which is one of the worst seasons of Star Trek ever made. But it's a sequence where the character Reed ends up trapped by a mine on the outer hull of the ship with the leg pinned to the surface of the ship, like by a spike. And he has to survive. And it's a really tense survival drama. And Braga talks about like going into the pitch meeting with the executives and saying, you know, so this is what's going to happen. They're going to go out in the hull. There's going to be a mine. They're pinned, gonna have this tension, there's gonna be a Romulan ship, it's gonna have stakes building throughout the episode, and he goes point by point through it for like a 45-minute presentation, and he's like, okay, any questions? And an executive near the front of the room looks around, raises his hand kind of awkward, it's like, yeah, I got a question. Okay, what's your question? What's a hull? And the other example that Braga gives is like, So we went into our first.
That's a great question, by the way. A really important question.
And I'm glad that you waited until the end of my 45-minute presentation to get to the log line of the episode. You tell that there's another guy behind him goes, "What's a Romulan? Is that what
Romulan?
Romulan?
I think I ate at a Romulan place the other day. Good noodles.
Yeah. And then the other story that Braga tells is the one where they're like, where they're pulled into a meeting with the executives. The executives are like, so we think this show could be doing better with young demos. So we want to ask you a question. Does the ship have like a bar on it? And they're like, yeah, it actually is a lounge, like a 10 forward kind of area. Like,
yeah.
Okay, so we were thinking we could get like McFly, maybe have like a different band play in the lounge every week. And they're like, you do realize this is on a spaceship exploring unknown alien worlds. It's like, where do you think the bands are going to come from? It's like, that's why you're the writers.
I just know I got Blink 182 here who's looking to do something.
Yeah,
put some
Star
ears on
Wars fan. He says he's a big Star Wars fan. It's the same thing, right?
Well, and I guess like that, to try to be obviously like these are phenomenal stories, and I could talk Star Trek Voyager for so long, but like at the end of the day, like creative projects need leaders. You need someone not necessarily to micromanage, but just to point in a direction.
You're boldly going. Yeah, to tell you where you're boldly going.
And yeah, Voyager writers disagreed. The network didn't know what the show was doing. One of the greatest
showrunner had no inexperience, like in the, and again, and you had this idea of like, and I think also part of it is that like television was moving on as well. Like it was airing at the time that you were starting to see shows like The Sopranos come on television.
Yes.
And you started to see shows like The X-Files. And so like what worked for Star Trek The Next Generation in 1989 did not work for Voyager in 1999. And the show didn't like keep pace. Because that's the thing with Deep Space Nine did keep pace. Deep Space Nine did evolve. It became more serialized and more adventurous and more ambiguous as it went on. Whereas Voyager and Enterprise as well. Like, and I'm sympathetic to Enterprise and like its final two seasons. But like, we talked earlier about like reheats. We talked about how like Jurassic World Rebirth feels like the reheats of like a 10-year-old meal or a 30-year-old meal. Like you get to the point where like Voyager was just recycling episodes that you had seen 3 or 4 times on The Next Generation, but with the names crossed out where it's
And then how can we get Jerry Ryan in more scenes? We just need. She's great. Everyone loves her.
Well, you know that like she had to like this original suit was so tight that she needed oxygen between takes.
Yes.
They had a nurse on set to provide oxygen for Jerry Ryan between. Yeah, no, nuts. And I mean, again, I would recommend if you want to dig into this stuff, the 50-Year Mission, I believe it's called, which is the Mark Altman book, which has like this incredible oral history of Star Trek. It's well worth seeking out. But the Voyager stuff is incredible because like the Voyager cast literally do not give two shits. They are like, but they're like Robert Beltran is just like, just so we're clear, everybody on that set hated each other, and like nobody was having a good time. And like Kate Mulgrew really hated Jerry Ryan, and Jerry Ryan's like, yeah, I married Brandon Braga in part because I needed protection from Kate Mulgrew, and I'm like, is this something you want to put in a book that is published?
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So, by the way, all you have to do is get us a super chat, passively mentioning Star Trek Voyager. You will get entire podcasts worth of content.
Yeah, that was what 25 minutes, I think.
Anyway, going on to Murray the Demon Skull. Best cut in movies countdown. Let's see here. 3 is Battleship Potemkin, Odysseus Steps.
Yes, well, the Odessa Steps. Is it the Odessa or Odysseus? But yeah, it's Eisenstein, isn't it? It's classic Soviet editing. It's fantastic. It's the inspiration for the scene in what's it called, The Untouchables, where they literally have like the sequence with the baby pram going down the steps. Gotcha. That is very heavily influenced by Battleship Potemkin. Yeah, one of the most beautiful. That's a great. Yep.
Okay.
And what else is? Was that the only example on there? Was that
no. Number 2 is Jeff Goldblum. Yawn. Number 1 is Bruce Lee Photoshop in Game of Death.
I don't know that last one.
I don't know if I know that one either.
But Game of Death is obviously the one where he wears the tracksuit from Kill Bill.
Oh.
But I can't. I'm trying to remember what the stupid Photoshop thing is. God, it's been so long. I need to rewatch that. It's been so long.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see here. For Looming, have any of you seen John Frankenheimer's Prophecy? I went into it expecting schlocky horror and got a really decent environmental horror film. Great work as always, guys. Hold on for a second. I'm going to
Robert
Google this.
Foxworthy, I think, if I remember correctly, who again is a regular Star Trek guy. So let's do another 20 minutes on Star Trek. But no, I remember it being quite good. Again, this is one of the things where it's a movie I remember Granddad, but that was at this stage like 27, 28 years ago. So I really need to revisit. But yeah, I remember liking it.
And I don't think I have ever seen this.
Great poster. It's like a baby. Is it like a monster baby?
It's like a monster baby in a translucent egg, and on that poster alone, I'm adding it to my watch list. Is what I'm going to say.
I remember having a good time with it.
Let's see here. Then we go from Murray. We go to Murray the Demon Skull. I got the sense from Krypton implied and explicitly stated to be technologically superior. Jor-El saying Cal should conquer had more of a colonialism, imperialism undercurrent.
I don't mind. Like, this is the thing with the Superman stuff, is you're always going to brush up against complicated immigrant stuff, and like it's very notable. We don't need to go back and talk about Superman. One of my other issues with the movie is the fact that it is like the 8th consecutive Superman movie in which Superman faces Lex Luthor and or budget equivalent Lex Luthor when Gene Hackman won't show up, and or a Kryptonian opponent / copy of Superman / replicant of Superman villain. But like, yeah, like when you do Zod is an alien invasion narrative. But the thing is that like an alien invasion narrative isn't as loaded as a great replacement narrative, because the United States has arguably never been invaded since it existed as a political entity, despite like there have been attacks and like, but it has never been subject to a full-blown land invasion. Therefore, when you are doing that colonial metaphor, it reads as like the H.G. Wells, gee, wouldn't it be terrible if somebody invaded us, the guys who normally invade other places? Whereas like the thing about the way that the movie presents it here, which is the go out and be fruitful and multiply and fuck them into submission, which is make humanity sit in the cuck chair, as it were, is that like it is something that, as I mentioned, people actually believe and like is a talking point and is something that is in the culture, as much as I wish it weren't.
It is something that modern day immigrants are accused of. And so in your movie saying this immigrant, yeah, that's true in this case, is I very much understand that is very tenuous. I know there are many Superman properties that have done this narrative, specifically like Superman fighting with like the past versions of his parents as to what his place. I want to say they did this. I'm sure they've done it in many comics. I remember this as being a big Smallville run as well.
Yeah, Smallville on TV had it as well, where Jor-El turned out to be, which was played by Terrence Stamp, if I remember correctly, which is a nice allusion to Zod. I mean, like, again, we could go for 20 minutes on Zod and how, like, Zod was not really... Like, Zod had appeared in the comics, but he was not the go-to Krypton antagonist until Superman 2. And because of Superman 2, every Kryptonian villain is now Zod. Like, again, we get back to, like, Superman 2 being quietly the most influential, like, superhero movie ever made, despite the theatrical release not being very good.
Oh, sure. And I like... I not to relitigate, but yeah, I understand the criticisms of including that in your Superman movie, and then more importantly, not dealing with that in any meaningful way. Like the
way of dealing with that in a meaningful way is Superman is one of the good. Like that's the thing where it's like, how are we going to diffuse this problem? So don't worry, he's an exceptional guy. He's not going to do that. He swears he's not going to do it.
Like if that was the meat of the story of him kind of grappling with this, and we really deal with it, and he's not just a good guy, he wholly rejects that, and blah blah blah. Like that would have been a little something. But to put that out there as the reality of the situation, and then kind of just brush it off, I can very much see Darren's point there and agree that.
To be clear, I've got no objection to Jor-El being bad. I've got no objection to the idea of like the legacy of Krypton being complicated. I think that's actually like a really interesting thing, because that's a thing immigrants do struggle with, is the question of like, how do I balance these two identities? How am I both? And I say this as somebody who, like, my siblings are in Australia. Are they Irish or are they Australian? I have cousins in England. Are they English or are they Irish? And how do you balance the two things between them? And that's like a huge part of what makes Superman cool, is the fact that he is like literally the best of both worlds. And like just in this movie, feels like that is not the message that this movie has, like the take that this movie has.
Well, because it's so light and it moves
Yeah,
so
yeah,
fast and it is
yeah.
so full of
Yeah.
things, they just don't have the time to deal with it. Yeah.
As Jesse said, we have seen like Krypton and the Origin so many times, we don't need to
Yeah.
see it again.
Exactly.
But it's like, then maybe don't bring Krypton into your movie.
Well, no, and I know like Superman being created from
Yeah.
Jewish creators. I have several
Yeah.
Jewish friends who also consider themselves to be atheists, and so like dealing with like modern feelings, but a cultural wanting to hold on to the culture, but not necessarily the ideals of that culture
Yeah.
or whatnot, is something that could be grappled with and has been grappled with in many Superman properties. Way more interestingly. Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Let's see here. Exalted Platypus. I think Superman was about Superman overcoming the recent cultural expectations of Superman to the point that, spoilers, he fights another version of Superman. It's overstuffed, but I think it hit that. Well, and as we discussed, if you are making a movie that is only a response to something, that might not be your best use of time.
I get it. Like, I get that, like, Gunn is, again, this is when I think my initial tweet review of it is a movie lost in its own head. But, like, a large part of it is that it does feel like it's more about Superman than it is about, like, any, like, the world outside of Superman. Where it's like, what's interesting to me about Superman is what Superman says about the world and what Superman says about America. And, like, that to me is, like, what these characters are, like, so interesting, is, like, what they say about the human condition and what they say about, like, things that are more important than themselves. Like, what does Batman say about wealth? Or what does Batman say about vengeance? Or what does Batman say about guilt? What does Superman say about immigration? What does he say about the American dream? What does he say about the ideal that, like, anybody can be a self-made man, that anybody is capable of greatness? Those are all big ideas. And a large part of what this movie is, I think the comment is entirely correct to give the Super Chat a shout out. A lot of this movie does feel like it's Gunn going, yeah, but how does this relate to other Superman stuff? Where, like, we mentioned Lex Luthor is playing Injustice. We mentioned that, like, Ultraman is, not only is Ultraman a character from the comics who is an evil version of Superman from an alternate universe, but in this movie, he is specifically a copy of, like, Homelander from The Boys, specifically. And also, he is shot in a way that I don't want to, and I don't think it's malicious, and I don't even know if it's intentional, but he's framed in a way that is designed to remind me of Henry Cavill, with the eyes constantly glowing red, for example, and the black suit like he wears in Zack Snyder's Justice League and stuff. And it's like, so much of this movie is about, like, Superman fighting different versions of Superman, and it's like, maybe just let Superman be Superman? Like, maybe instead of, like, having your Superman defeat other ideas of Superman, maybe he can put forward his own idea of what Superman is. You know, and I mean, and again, like, it's a familiar Superman trope. Like, it's very telling that, like, so many of, like, every Superman movie after the, like, Richard Donner original involves some variation of Superman fighting a version of himself. In Superman 2, he fights 3 Kryptonians who have his same powers. In Superman 3, he very famously fights a version of himself with a 5 o'clock shadow. In Superman 4, he fights, like, literally Ultraman from this movie, which is a clone made by Lex Luthor, cloned from his own hair. And, like, obviously in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, he fights another Kryptonian. I mean, it's very, like, it's very interesting that the most interesting thing a Superman movie has done with a villain is when, in, like, Batman versus Superman, they decided to mash Lex Luthor and the Kryptonian into one single villain. And you're like, that is a new idea. Congratulations. It took you, what, at that stage, like, nearly 40 years? But you hit on a new idea. Congratulations.
You did it. Water Hazard says, Brosnahan's casting, sorry if I mispronounced that, really had me convinced the aim was to bring romance back to blockbusters, especially after how good Mrs. Maisel is. Love the film, but there is a lot in it that could have been. But there is a lot in it that could have been. Oh, sure. There is a lot of, I think what you're saying there, Wader Hazard, is that there is a lot of missed potential. Like, a lot of things could have been more than the things, one of them being the lack of romance, 100%.
Maisel, the Amazing Miss Maisel, which I think is an Amazon video. Again, like, we've got to the stage in streaming wars where I don't even know which streaming service these premiered.
I believe that, at least in the States, that is on Amazon, correct.
And she's very good, and I think she is very good here. Like, again, I love, like, Holt. I think Holt is one of the most interesting actors working today. I don't think the movie gives him much to do. Like, I think, like, the movie turns him into, like, a lesser version of the character from The Great. And it's like, I watched The Great. I don't need to see this version. Like, it is very sad and very depressing that the best version of Lex Luthor ever to appear on screen is still the alleged sex offender. Like it's still it's still Kevin Spacey. Like I watched Superman. I watched the Superman movies to prepare for this, and like I do not care for Superman Returns, and I really do not like that movie. But like Spacey is the one version of Lex that actually, to me, feels like an actual monster. Kevin Spacey convincingly playing a monster. I don't know how he dug so deep inside himself and where'd he pull that out of? Watching Margin Call, it's the movie where Kevin Spacey is the movie's moral center. And like, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, and I know, like, in general, blockbusters, modern movies in general, are kind of grappling with this, what do we do with romance? Especially in, like, obviously we're getting a lot of horny independent features, or more independent features, AA features, but AAA does seem to be shying away from it. They smooched a couple times. I guess that's something.
Not in India, crucially, as we discussed.
Murray the Demon Skull says, Darren says a lot of the studio appeared to lose faith in how the audience watches these movies. Interpretation, release the gun cut.
Let's not do that again.
Oh God, let's not do that again.
And again, this is me as somebody who really liked Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm also like, we don't need to do that again. Like, we don't need that culture war to happen again. What you should just do is let directors release their cuts originally. I do want to shout out, by the way, movie I've watched recently, the Albert Pyun cut of like Captain America, which is his 1990s, like really bad, really awful, really fun Captain America movie.
You're talking about the Captain America movies in which Captain America uses his power of faking to be ill in order to steal a car?
He uses his power of faking car sickness twice, and it works both times.
Boom.
60% of the time, it works every time. And like, want to be clear, like, so, and like Pyun throughout his career had said, I had a different cut of that movie. The studio came in and they cut it to ribbons. They wanted to make something that was more commercial, ironically enough, given how that turned out. But something that was more conventional, more straightforward. I had a more adventurous movie. And like for years, he would like cart around these like film canisters that he would show people his cut of the movie on it. And like it was recently released on Blu-ray. You can order a copy. Again, this is not paid product placement, but I think it's like Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother Video is where they're selling it, because Pyun retained the copyright on his director's cuts because these movies were made for nothing. So he could afford to retain the like copyright on his director's cuts. So it's restored and it arrived, and I watched it last night, and I like, it is not a hidden masterpiece, to be clear. Like, I'm not going to suggest that like Albert Pyun's Captain America is the best Captain America movie ever made or the best superhero movie of 2025. But you watch it and like there is a world of difference between the movie as it originally existed, which is broken and dysfunctional and kind of boring and insane and like just really poorly made and has no heart in it. And the version which he made, which, I would also argue is bad and uneven and poorly budgeted and suffers from a lot of narrative problems. And the restructuring of the movie causes more problems of itself. The attempt to like restore his original vision of what the movie was doesn't really work because he's trying to use pieces that no longer exist. But you watch it and it is strangely moving. You watch it and it has like an actual heart, and it's actually earnest, and it's actually trying to say things, and it has a perspective. And it's like, this is not a good movie, but it is a better movie. And it's a movie that like I oddly enough actually care about by the end of it. And I'm not going to recommend that you seek it out, particularly because like it's coming from a specialty video store and it costs a large amount of money to order as a curiosity. But like, I am glad that I watched it. And like, my general perspective is like, you hire a director to make a movie, trust them. Like, as long as they don't go over budget and over time, as long as like you've agreed the script with them, they've pitched you on their vision, you've said yes, you've given them a budget, you've given them a time, as long as they give you at the end of that process a finished movie, that's fine. Like, let the chips fall. But like, that's my very boring take on this. So much pain could be avoided.
Agreed. No, so much pain could be avoided. I think that is actually, the unfortunate thing about the Pyun cut is, it had to wait until after he passed away in order for it to be released. But also I do think this is a downfall of the digital revolution. Is now it is so easy for executives and studio heads to watch dailies, whereas before it would be a giant task to get them to check in on their movie, which is why in the heydays movies were a little weirder.
Well, no, but also, and it's even down to the basic production stuff. Like, you don't shoot on location anymore. You largely shoot on sound stages, where executives can be staying in a hotel with you and hovering over your shoulder as you're making the movie. You also use like CGI as opposed to practical effects, because it is like you can pixel fuck artists, but you can like rework movies in post using special effects a lot easier, or VFX a lot easier than you can using practical effects. Where like if it's an actual explosion, going to the hassle of going back to the location, re-rigging the explosion, bring the actors back in order to shoot it costs a lot of money. But if you shoot in front of a green screen, you can just change whatever you want and it costs the same amount of money anyway. Again, the way that we make movies, you're right, has had an effect on like the way in which studios feel increasingly like encouraged to meddle in. Also, the fact that they cost so much and the stakes are so high now as well. Like,
movies, because there is no necessarily middle ground for movies anymore. That's a whole different conversation. But right. But in general, I don't know. I don't want the gun cut. I don't want this to turn into a movement. I'm sure there's going to be a special Blu-ray with a gun cut, but that will be mostly marketing, I'm sure.
Here's the question though: the Marvel Cinematic Universe has never released a director's cut, to my knowledge, right? And it's like
I think you're true.
Yeah, and I think like there is a purity to like the continuity of comic books, where it's like if you start introducing director's cuts, it's like, well, which one of them is canon if this is a shared universe? I do like that is the thing. That's the one thing that makes me believe you wouldn't see a director's cut of it.
Well, I guess here would be my real snarky response is James Gunn is the writer director of the movie and the head
studio
of the
head.
studio. If this isn't his cut, something is wrong.
Yeah, I mean that is the fundamental point where people joke about release the gun cut. This is the gun cut. Like when I was, and I know, just shout out to Murray the Demon's Sky in there. We are talking about this seriously. I know that it was kind of meant in jest. It is just something that's fun to talk about. I hope it's fun to listen to us talk about. I want to apologize if it isn't. But like the thing is that like. When I say that this movie is compromised or feels compromised by like fear of the audience response, I think it's Gunn who is like, I don't think that it's like, I don't think David Zaslav is like holding a gun to his head saying, remove the day of the week title cards or so help me God. But like, I think that it's Gunn going, no, this is the first movie in my DCU. It needs to make $700 million. Like, it needs to appeal to absolutely everybody. I cannot run the risk of this going the route of like the Suicide Squad, which was a well-reviewed, well-loved movie where virtually everybody who saw it was like, that was a great superhero movie, but not everybody saw it. And it's like, I can't run the risk of that happening with Superman, so I need to mitigate it. And there is that sense of self-censorship. I don't imagine that like Gunn was like, it would be incredible if like Gunn, if he was having conversations like Two-Face in Batman with like the director and studio.
This is Gunn like literally putting on a suit. He is now like on the other side of things where he needs to deal with thousands of people's jobs, which is
if he messes this up like Craig Gillespie's Supergirl is fucked. Like, and that's a thing to weigh on your shoulders. It's like if you fuck up your movie, it's bad for you, and maybe it's bad for your actors, but it's like there is a containment of damage. And it is worth noting that like Puck, that's run by the former editor of the Hollywood Reporter, Matthew Belloni, reported earlier in the summer that like the perception in Warner Brothers as like Superman was being made was that like if the Superman flops, Warner Brothers is done. Now, this was before Minecraft. This was before Sinners. This was before they had another big one recently as well. I'm trying to remember what it was. But like, it is now less important than it was like back in May that this movie make $1 bajillion. But like while they were making it, like, you know that Gunn was in the back of his head going, if this fucks up, I lose the chance to do what I want to do. I lose, like, I break every promise that I made to every other creator, which is, it seems like he is a guy who has talked about how important his creative collaborators are to him and how important it is that, like, he trusts people and they trust him. And I take him at his word. Like, as much as I complain about this movie, I think Gunn is a decent guy. I think that Gunn is a mensch. He seems like everybody who talks about it makes him sound like a mensch. I think that, like, he does carry that responsibility seriously. And also, I could potentially kill one of the oldest and most beloved studios in Hollywood. That will make you nervous. Like,
yes.
I'm on a podcast where like the worst thing I could do is be like the third worst guy on a great panel, and I get nervous. I'm like,
Oh, well, and I think like what will be more interesting is 20, 30 years down the line, maybe hopefully Gunn will write a book and talk about this time in his life, like going from Tromeo and Juliet to the head of DC Studios is one, ridiculous, but two, like the shift in responsibilities and how that affects your art is a fascinating subject for me. So hopefully we'll hear that story.
Different hats.
All
And I mean, like, have we had a studio head director before? Because Feige doesn't direct. I know Feige basically directs if you listen to like Nia DaCosta, but he doesn't actually direct. Like,
right.
I think like when it's been how long has it been since we had a like studio head who direct? I know the current head of Paramount is a director who did. I'm gonna go to the fact machine and check this. But the current head of Paramount is like the guy who directed like Monster Trucks or something absurd like that.
Not a bad movie. That Monster Truck movie. Not a bad movie.
Movie that almost killed Paramount.
Not a bad movie.
Famously, a pitch developed by like an executive's 8-year-old kid.
And you know what? I watched it when my kids were 8, and it was great. Tom Lennon's in it. You got monsters who are also
Tom
trucks.
Lennon's in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Let's see here. Jappio says, movie worked for me because I see the theme as that good should be celebrated, and Soups being beat is a symbol.
The director of Norbit.
Oh, God.
Director of Norbit, Meet Dave, the Shaggy Dog.
Oh, God. Was the head of a studio?
Is the head of Paramount. That's Brian Robbins.
Why would you trust that man? Why would you trust that man?
Maybe it was like a kind of a Peter Principle thing where we're getting him out of the way, where it's like he's going to just keep directing Eddie Murphy movies. And it's like, okay, crazy plan. Yeah. The problem is they keep making money. Well, how do we get him out of the way? Sorry, so that is Brian, with all due respect to Brian Robbins.
Apologies. Of course. Yeah. Some people are better in an executive role. That's fine. Let's see here. Jappio says, movie worked for me because I see the theme as that good should be celebrated, and Soups being beat is a symbol of good that comes under question, but despite he still does good and inspires. I agree with that. I can also see the argument that there wasn't a lot of that in the movie because it was overstuffed with other things. I was happy with my scraps.
Will say, loved crypto. Like I was one of the things I was actually quite skeptical going into the movie about, like the volume of crypto. I know you were like a little bit too much crypto.
I think there was too much crypto.
I was like going into the movie. I was like, there's gonna be too much crypto, and I came out and I was like, right amount of crypto. I'm like. I would watch an entire movie about the League of Super Pets. Like, if only like there had been an animated movie. Yeah, I know. If only there'd been like a Dwayne the Rock Johnson movie where he voiced like Crypto, and he also voiced like Black Adam, and he also voiced like Black Adam's dog. Oh. If only that movie existed. If only that were something.
Never. It's never going to happen.
No, it never happened.
Yeah. Let's see here. Murray, the Demon Skull says, how does Luthor not end up with multiple death sentences? How does Luthor get away with crimes? Easy. He becomes president.
Which is actually something that happens in the DCU, yes.
That's something that happens in several versions of Superman. Yeah. That is, I'm sure that is not a statement on real life criminals and whether or not they become president, that we are talking about Lex Luthor in the Superman universe and nothing else. Let's see. Murray, the Demon Skull, says, I think the low-key take of Superman works better now than in the 70s because he isn't a big icon anymore. Superman has been supplemented and arguably Captain America, or by arguably Captain America for the past decade.
I think there's only so like this is the thing where it's like you say Superman and you draw the symbol of like the triangle with the S in it, and it is just instantly recognizable around the world. Like this is the thing where it's like, and I know people talk about like Batman, and they talk about how ubiquitous Batman is, and I think like the big three are like Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman, and maybe in fourth place the collective X-Men, I guess, including Wolverine. But it's like in terms of like cultural impact, I think those are the ones where it's like. People can now point to Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor as a result of the Marvel movies, but I think there is a staying power in culture where the term Brainiac exists in the English language because of Superman comics. The term Bizarro, I believe, also originated in... Now, obviously, that's just you take the word bizarre and replace the E with O. It's not a tough one from the writers of Superman, but it is like... When was the
something.
last time you heard anybody say he's a real Obadiah? Man, that dude's a real whiplash.
Yeah, I think uh
Check
in
out
the
Melter over here.
I think in the movie sphere, obviously Captain America has been larger in the movie sphere. I think though you are looking at this too focused on the movie sphere. If you broaden out even a little bit, uh, children who have never read a comic, never watched a movie, never seen a cartoon, know who Superman is. Like Superman is someone so known within the zeitgeist of general human knowledge that I don't think Captain America is at that point.
My parents
But
care about Superman. Like that's the
right,
thing. That's the litmus test. My parents who know Kevin Costner care about Superman. So they're all in on Man of Steel.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, but I think like that is an interesting. It's an interesting idea of like kind of where that because obviously Captain America is the quote unquote Superman of the Marvel universe, but you know where does that land within the movie sphere now? Even just for that short while, I think
Love the
like,
Liefeld's Captain America. Yeah.
oh fuck the Liefeld. Oh
yeah,
God.
where we cut him in half. We gotta like open him like a bookcase. It's like
Oh God, Eric with the Liefeld jump scare. God damn it. Hey, everybody, take a look at that art that a professional was paid to draw. You, live your dreams. If you want to draw, you can draw, and you can be paid for it too.
I think I actually have some Liefeld in here, but I would have to dig for it.
No, don't worry about it. But in any case, I think it's an interesting idea. Let's see here. Murray, the Demon Skull, having Superman just appear and be the best possible feels remarkable now when the American way has so much negative connotations. I want to say they had a toss away line during that interview scene about, truth, justice, and the American way. It like Superman being the American superhero wasn't necessarily hit very hard in the movie. This
is where I feel like there's maybe a difference between American and international audiences. Where like Superman believes himself to be a world policeman who has the right to unilaterally interfere in foreign wars because he deems it to be right, using humanitarian reasons as justification for his intervention, and refusing to it.
Difference.
Yeah. This is what happens when you invite a non-American on the podcast.
No, but by the way, what a wonderful point of view that like I didn't see it, but yeah.
And this is the thing where I think like, and obviously to be clear, American influence is very fraught internationally now, as it has been, as it was between the years 2016 and 2020, and will be presumably between now and 2028 for whatever reason that might be. But I think there is also a tendency to ignore the fact that like, as much as like Europeans in particular, and obviously like there are different international markets. I can't speak for like the Middle East. I can't speak for East Asia. I can't speak for Africa. But like Europe in particular, I can talk for, which is where Europeans do like to complain about America, but there is an obvious affection for American culture there, where like as much as like Europeans complain American politics and like the way in which American is a young nation, a bit too big for its boots, who not willing to listen to its elders, playing its punk music at loud volumes in its bedroom. But as much as like Europe has these political anxieties about the rise of America, which is entirely reasonable and makes sense in historical cultural context, generally speaking, we actually really fucking love American pop culture. Like the French fucking love Clint Eastwood. Like Clint Eastwood has like picked up César awards. Like when he goes to Cannes, I have never felt more love for American pop culture than when I was in Cannes and Kevin Costner walked in the door and the entire French audience were like, we are in the presence of American like royalty. I do think I don't think Superman being American full stop is an issue. And this is the thing where I find myself really like, over the past couple of years in comics, particularly since like 2011-ish, comics have really struggled with the idea of Superman who fights for truth, justice, and the American way. And there have been attempts to say he fights for truth, justice, and the human way, or truth, justice, and democracy. And that to me is like fixing a problem that doesn't exist. where it's like it's corny and we kind of like that Americana. We like Clint Eastwood. Like we don't need Clint Eastwood to, like, I don't know, not talk to empty chairs at the Republican convention in order for us to love him. We just need him to be Clint Eastwood, and that is enough for us. And I feel like Captain America movies make large amounts of money worldwide, despite containing the word America in their titles.
Yeah.
I do think the issue with this movie is the issue in particular with this movie, where I do feel like the way that this movie deals with those themes is maybe the issue with this movie getting a colder reception. It is worth noting, like, Man of Steel, which, again, to be clear, not a huge unequivocal success worldwide. Every time I invoke Man of Steel, I have to make clear I do not like Man of Steel.
I don't like Man of Steel, but
yeah, I know, exactly. Like, before I make like an observation that is an objective fact about Man of Steel, I always have to be like careful, be like, just so we're clear here, I'm not defending Man of Steel. Man of Steel did something, was it like 48% of its box office worldwide?
Yeah.
And you have that, like, again, ill-judged James Gunn was a keyboard warrior and maybe needs to, like, take a moment before he makes public statements where he was like, when I'm dealing with people online, it's like a 12-year-old from India, but it is international.
Yeah.
Ooh. Like they are, it's international audiences, and it's worth noting those movies are especially American. Like, Superman goes to fucking Congress in one of them, right? Like, you can't argue that it's not American.
Yes.
I don't think Superman's Americanness is a barrier to entry for the character, if that makes sense. I think, like, we like hot dogs, like Clint Eastwood, we love Superman.
Yeah. No, and I think, something that brought up, this just sparked something that was brought up on a different podcast or live stream where, like, because, recently we had the 4th of July, our Independence Day celebration here in the States. And, some people were talking negatively about it. And, Oh, can you hear me?
I was about to say, you mentioned Independence Day. We fucking love Independence Day. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, yeah. You were just bringing up a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, and there were some people who are upset at, certain political parties kind of taking a stranglehold over patriotism in general. And it's like, hey, if you are, left, right, or whatever, it's okay to be patriotic, and, it's okay to be that level of corny if you own up to it. Yeah.
I mean, it's worth noting the movie Independence Day, in which America saves the world from an alien invasion by giving a stirring speech about, like, today is our Independence Day, directed by a European.
Amazing.
And, like, beloved by European audiences. Like,
beloved by me.
Paul Verhoeven. Yeah, I am European audiences. I speak on behalf of the entire continent of Europe. But even, like, RoboCop, which is, like, to my mind, the quintessential American movie, and is in many ways like the American Jesus story, directed by Paul Verhoeven. Like, it's I think there is a tendency to assume that, like, anti-American sentiment is rife, or that, like, it equates to a dislike of everything American, and it's not. I think there is genuine, at least in Europe. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but for Europe, there is an adoration of, like, American pop culture in its purest form.
Sure.
And, like, we mentioned the divide between, like, European and American critics over Superman. I was talking to a prominent, like, Irish critic about this, and we were like, when was the last time you remember this happening? And off the top of our heads, the one we came back to was Kong Skull Island, where European critics loved Kong Skull Island far more than American critics, because it is so American. Like, it is so fundamentally American. We were like, was that too American for American audiences?
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
No, it is. Like it's what if we did a Vietnam on Skull Island? And it's like, okay, yeah.
Hell yeah. Sir George Lucas, thanks for the super chat. Please talk Generations with epic Picard Kirk team up. No, we don't have time.
How long have you guys? When's the next stream due to start on this?
I think Jenna's.
I do like the Kirk dies on a bridge. Right? I do love the Kirk dies on the bridge.
Honestly, no, Jenna's on vacation, so I don't know if Nick is streaming. Theoretically, there is a stream that starts in 20 minutes, but I don't know if it's happening. So
Eric has just said no stream today after us, but I'm not sure how long we can sustain this. Why would you say that, Eric?
Why would you say that? Let's see here. Murray, the Demon Skull, says, Darren, I'm paying money, so he knows I'm not serious. Love your analysis. You've become one of my favorite film analysts. Hard agree. Hard agree.
Thank you. That means a lot. To go back to Generations, if you do want to hear me talk about Generations, Andrew, when he came back from paternity leave, insisted that we do a conversation about like Generations. It is a 3.5 hour conversation about, which is because it is quite literally the first time that he like arranged to have time away from the baby. So it was. So as any parent will know, it's like you grab that with both hands. But yeah, so it's a conversation about the movie. Andrew really loves that movie, and I've had it really sweet listening to him talk about it. So if you, I love that you're like, I don't believe it. No, he's
an odd one. He's an odd one. That's
yeah. And then now we'll go back to the NBA updates. But I will say, like, you're not allowed to say that you have favorite episodes of your own podcast because it's kind of an ego thing. But I will say one of my favorite episodes to record was Generations because he loves that movie to death, and there is nothing like sitting down and listening to somebody talk about like why they love something, even if you have the reaction that Jack just did to that. Yeah.
Over on Ko-Fi or Coffee, I don't know how to pronounce that. Jumbly Wobbly has a donation that says, I feel if you're making an inspirational, hopeful Superman farm boy film and not use the John Williams' Superman March, it is as much a sin as jumping into a Bond film and not hitting us with an arrangement of that franchise's iconic theme. Here's my hot take. I disagree. I mean, obviously the original John Williams Superman theme is brilliant and wonderful, but I also don't want us to be beholden to that. Make your own new themes. It's okay.
They use the same font. They use the same credits font as they do for like the Donner movies. And again, I want to be clear. This is something I was wary of when I looked at the movie, like when I looked at the trailers, the marketing. I was like, is this going to just be a nostalgia fest? And I will say, watching Superman Returns.
Oh, are we having more internet issues?
Nostalgia. Or have more internet issues. Apologies. Oh, we're
frozen. It could be just me.
It could
stop
just motion.
Me.
1 second. We change the server just in case.
Okay, Eric's going to change the servers, so we get. Darren, you're in and out now. I see him. I do see you moving at like 2 frames per second. Oh, okay. Now you're smooth. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, maybe. Oh, Eric's changing some stuff up, and now you're back. Here you are.
We're back, and you seem smoother. But what I was going to say is, I would that this movie was going to do, and then, are we frozen again? I think we're frozen again
for a little bit. I'm hearing. There you go. Now you're smooth.
Okay. Always smooth. But we were talking. I'm gonna keep making that joke until it's funny and it happens without a glitch. But to get to the nostalgia stuff, because you watched Superman Returns before I watched this. I was like, no movie in the history of cinema is going to out nostalgia Superman Returns. So I was pleasantly surprised at like this movie's relative.
I'm going to assume Darren said relative lack of nostalgia. That's how I'm going to assume that sentence.
Sorry, that seems to be the connection. Is it me? It's maybe me. I think it may just.
Maybe switch deactivate the camera for now.
Oh, we're getting there, everybody. I mean, already, y'all are getting a meaty podcast.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Already.
Hey.
Oh, yeah, there you are.
Yeah. All right.
Great. So I'm assuming that sentence ended with a relatively nostalgia light. Uh-oh. Oh, so many issues.
Are we back? Did we stop again? Oh, did we stop? I think nature is telling us to wrap up.
Honestly, this is just Discord.
The webcam, so it should work now properly.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is just Discord being like, y'all, people don't have 3 hours for a podcast, and I hard disagree. Yeah. I like talking to Darren, so this is going to go on for as long as it needs to.
We will pull it out one syllable at a time if we have to. But yeah, I will say, like, there is a lot of like the Donner Superman movies here. I think we're frozen again. Yeah. Oh no, we're not. Okay, so you were. your head was like, was when you're listening, you're frozen in one place. I'm like, are we stuck again? But like there's a lot of, there's obviously, we mentioned the plot of Superman 4, where like Lex Luthor makes a clone of Superman from his own hair. Again, we have Lex Luthor like fascinated with the use of land. The entire Lex plot in this movie is about him creating land. You have also, like, you've got Otis and you've got Teschmacher, both of which are characters who I believe originated in the 1978 like original film. And like obviously you've got like the font and the music. There is a lot of nostalgia stuff here, and part of me is like, and again, feels very much like a reaction to a previous Superman movie which shall remain unnamed, but which does feature a distinctive Hans Zimmer score. And like, I will say about that movie, that score is not as good as the John Williams score, because the John Williams score is god tier, but that score is pretty good. Like, what are you going to do when you're not saving the world is a pretty good Superman score. And it's like, I don't think you should be afraid to try and do new things, because it's like Batman. The Batman 1966 score is one of the great superhero themes, right?
No,
Batman. Why would you need another super? Why every Batman movie should use that? And then like the Danny Elfman dun, 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 is incredible and fantastic.
Incredible, yeah.
And like, even when you get to like the Dark Knight trilogy, again with good old Hans Zimmer working on it there, but like that score is also iconic, not as iconic as like Elfman and not as iconic as 66, but still iconic in its own right, to the point where like he uses it again in F1 with a slutty little Euro synth playing over it. Like it's that good that he's just like, I'll just recycle it and we'll put a little bit of Euro pop on top of it. But like, yeah, it's like, if you don't try these things, they become stagnant. And it's like, yes. I love John Murphy, the guy who helped compose the Superman score here. Like, he did some really great work with Danny Boyle. He did like 28 Days Later. He did Sunshine. And like his Adagio D from Sunshine is incredible. His In the House in a Heartbeat from like 28 Days Later is incredible. There's no piece of music in this movie that makes me go, oh, this is a new addition to my superhero playlist. Sorry.
Yeah,
you know?
No, and I hard agree. Like these things are iconic. Like you said, the Bond theme, absolutely, bang, 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 bang. Like super iconic. But also, that's we have
every Bond movie has its own theme, though. Is the thing, like, you have that theme, but every Bond movie has like a proper orchestral score that is entirely its own. Where it's like Adele's Skyfall is recognizable outside of the context of the movie.
And we have to be willing to let go of these things if we want to move forward. Everything you love, you have to be willing to let go. Like, oh, let's change. You know, I want new Jurassic World stuff, but we should maybe have the theme stay the same because it was so good. No, fuck it. It's okay to move forward with stuff.
Because you do get to the stage where it's like, why don't we just CGI Christopher Reeve and George Reeve and Henry Cavill and Adam West and Nicolas Cage? And it's like, I've seen that movie. I've seen a baby go into a microwave.
You'll believe a baby can be microwaved.
All right, have hired me for marketing.
Eric, our very own Eric says, do you know what the most American aspect of Superman is? The ongoing legal battles over the ownership of the characters. Looks like DC technically doesn't own the character in some countries. Oh boy. Well, and it won't matter in America in a couple of years, right?
Yeah. Again, that's the thing with the James Bond. We think we referenced it before, but like Amazon's purchase of James Bond, they have like 10 good years to milk him for all he's worth, baby. But like, again, this is the thing with Superman and with superhero comics in general. I have been rereading, like, because this is the thing, even though I didn't necessarily like the Superman movie, it has gotten me into reading a lot of Superman comics lately. I've had some really good like times getting back into reading old runs. Like, I think I love Paul Cornell's like The Black Ring with Pete Woods. New runs, like, is it Philip Kennedy Johnson's The Warworld Saga, which I think is collected in New Omnibus. But I was rereading like Grant Morrison's Action Comics, and there is this kind of really fascinating thing of like, what does it mean to have Superman who is this embodiment of hope and optimism and joy and struggle and triumph and working class solidarity, but who is the product of like a contractual exploitation of his creators? Where like, and there is like Grant Morrison's Action Comics run, which I would recommend. It's one of the great runs in comics. People always single out their All-Star Superman run, which is also incredible and is maybe the definitive Superman run that everybody should read. But their Action Comics run is like really great as well, because it's them dealing with the idea of like this thing that I love is more complicated than I understood it to be. What does it
Yeah.
mean for me to look at Superman as a character that I deeply, deeply care about, that I love very, very much, but who is also the product of the exploitation of the labor of artists just like me? And like, that's a really interesting, really thorny, complicated idea. And it's like, I know I'm never going to see that in a Superman movie. I know I'm never going to see, like, I know that like David Zaslav is never going to be like, yeah, you know what we need to do? Make a Superman movie about like corporate ownership. And it's worth noting that like Gunn did that already with Guardians 3. Guardians 3 is kind of about that. It's about like what it is to be a scruffy, dirty, like pathetic little creative who helps make something magical for a big faceless corporation, but they decide that you don't get to own it and don't get to have any part of it, and it all belongs to them. But like, it is interesting. Like, you'll never see that in a Superman movie, and it's part of what I find so fascinating about the characters, that like they embody, again, and this is all like sophistry, kind of like, you know, smoke a joint in like a college like dorm and go, man, you ever think about how capitalism exists? But like, I do, like, I love that so much. That's, again, the contradictions of the character and the way in which like you have to reconcile with these things and fit them all inside this Superman-shaped object. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's neat ideas. No, very, very neat ideas. Sussy Guru says, Superman represents what America thinks it is. Homelander is the more honest reflection of what America actually is. Sussy Guru, that's a very cynical take.
Yes, I would. Even I, who was like, just so we're clear, Superman unilaterally involves himself in foreign affairs, believes he knows what's right, and is acting in what he believes to be humanitarian reasons with no oversight. Even I think that's a little cynical of a read. I think Superman represents the idea of America at its best. It's the idea of like Superman as like, Superman is America as it could be, as it sees itself, and
as it hopes it can be.
Yes. Yes. Where it is this place where an immigrant can arrive and can build themselves up from nothing and can become something more and something greater. And like the thing about Superman is the idea that like, and this is, sorry, not to get back to what Darren doesn't like about this version of Superman, but like the core of the Superman myth is the idea that like America itself is made greater by the arrival of outsiders. That like Superman is different, and Superman is not like other people, and he comes to this planet / country with a different set of values and ideals and abilities and vision, and he makes America richer. That cultural stew where the flavor is what makes it so tasty and so rich and so wonderful and so magical. And it's like that to me is like, again, we talk about this, why Americans love Americana, why Europeans love Americana, but like that idea is intoxicating. And we can talk about whether or not it is or is not true, whether it ever was true, whether it has any base in fact. Those are all legitimate discussions to have. But that idea is romantic and intoxicating and beautiful and mythic. That's the, like, I talk about like Superman feeling like he's a mythic American character. That is what I mean. Like, he is such an essence of what America believes itself to be, and what at its best it is. Like, at its very best, on the very best day, it is that, and it is incredible. And that is what makes that country fantastic and wonderful and stunning. And it's like, again, that's why I love Superman, and that's why I imagine the international audiences also love Superman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Darren, international audience speaker. I love that I'm like, I thought I'm like, Superman acts unilaterally on behalf of the world, but I'm like, when I do it, it's fine. When I speak on behalf,
when I speak for the entirety of the world responding to America, it's fine.
Yeah, when I do it, it's cool. Yeah.
Let's see here. Def Jovi Pilots, does Andrew like RoboCop, Rogue City, or AVP games?
This is a point of discussion. Obviously, Andrew believes, and he's correct, that RoboCop is like the greatest movie ever made. Yeah. We have not played Rogue City. And there was some discussion when we did, because we did the Alien Predator franchise. There was some discussion about possibly playing Alien versus Predator while talking about Alien versus Predator. We ended up doing that instead for Ballistic X versus Sever, where we played the Game Boy Advance games, which are better than the movie. Both of them are better than the movie. We played the games while talking, which is very hard to do. I have no idea how you guys do that. How you talk about stuff while playing video games.
It's a weird skill to have. have, yeah.
It is, but we did talk about doing like an Alien versus Predator type thing, and we just could not make it work because of like life circumstances.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
I think we can mention the birth of his child. It's not a secret.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah,
No, and
we did talk about it, but
RoboCop
we didn't
Rogue
get.
City is an incredibly unremarkable shooter. Like it's really it looks like RoboCop, but it's
And
like
you're apparently like invincible in it. Like, is
Yeah,
the thing
it's-
like you're unkillable?
which is fine because it's RoboCop, but
'Cause
it's
you're
just like
RoboCop.
it's a fine piece of RoboCop franchise whatnots, but as a game, I didn't find it very great.
But also, like, is it like this is the thing with RoboCop, where it's like the original RoboCop is a masterpiece. The
Yeah.
sequels don't necessarily understand what makes RoboCop great outside the fact that he looks cool, and he does look very cool, to be clear. But it's like you lose a lot of like the satire and the
Yeah.
commentary and like what makes Robo. Does the game have any of that stuff?
Modern equivalents
Okay.
of the slow burn satire, like where it's not done
Okay.
as well or as subtly.
Silence. Totally. Nuke them before they nuke you. Nuke them. The new game.
Right, but like in RoboCop it was just so
Yeah.
entwined
Yeah,
in the world
yeah.
where it's just like everything was awful. But in any case, what I'm saying is, if you don't have the time to play him, it's fine. The Hawk CBM says, great video today. Darren, great finale. Jack, I assume you're talking about Adventures Now. Thank you. Agree with Darren on The Black Ring. Great run. I liked the Superman film, for its portrayal of Supes and Lois, despite how messy the movie's handling of assimilation was. That's fair.
And I do want to shout out like the Black Ring, like because everybody mentions all the good Superman comics and all the classics. The Black Ring is, to my mind, the most underrated Superman comic that anybody's.
Oh.
In large part because it's a Lex Luthor comic. It's like it's while J. Michael Straczynski was doing the Superman Walks Across America run, which was like a huge deal when it came out.
Yeah.
But like nobody remembers because it's not very good. But
I
basically,
liked Walkabout. You stop
Okay.
it.
Okay, but
He helps
basically,
the
like
guy fix his car.
There's a cat in a tree. I remember. Do you remember the whole controversy over the cat in the tree, where like DC editorial apparently went through several rounds of can Superman rescue a cat from? Welcome to the Superman podcast. Yeah, you didn't hear this.
I didn't.
Okay.
hear this.
Okay, we don't have time to get into it, but yeah, there was a big back and forth about whether or not, like, because they were like, Superman needs to be cool and modern, but he rescues a cat from a tree. It's like, is that a cliche image of Superman? Is that the Superman that we want in the world? We want a Superman that speaks to modern sensibilities. And there was like apparently a big back and forth where they drew and redrew the sequence, and they cut it from the book, and they like replaced it with ads, and then they added it back in, and then it was in previews, and then it was taken out. Like there was a whole big thing around it, around whether or not Superman could save a cat from a tree. But while that was happening, in Action Comics across the way, Paul Cornell was just like given a year to write a Lex Luthor comic where Lex Luthor goes up in search of like superpowers, and he just like he basically takes a tour through the DC universe where he meets all these like supervillains like Mr. Mind, the mind controlling worm, or Gorilla
Okay.
Grodd with his
Yeah.
like, I have brought my biggest, tastiest spoon to eat your brains, Lex Luthor, and it is just so much fun. If you were looking for a relative deep cut Superman comic that isn't often cited among the best Superman comics ever written, The Black Ring is the one that I would shout out.
I love it. I'm adding it to my list. Hold on for a second.
Oh, yeah,
My-
an actual list.
I do. Thing, every once in a while. Wait, no, not just Black Rings. The Black Ring comic. Thank you. Every once in a while, I find I'm in need of something to consume, and there we go. All right. Let's see here. Pure Pyro says my Tuby rec is Spiel. Hold on. I'm sorry. We'll get to Tuby in a second because I missed one. The Hawk CBM says missed most of the podcast. We'll catch up later. I do agree that Supes embodies what the U.S. should be, and I feel Gunn wants this Superman to be that. Sure. And now Pure Pyro says my Tuby rec is Spielberg's War of the Worlds. That's right. That is on Tuby. That's a fine movie. Where's my
Perfectly adequate. Perfectly
adequate movie? Where did
Okay.
my Tubi tab go? Oh, there it is. Okay.
My YouTube has crashed. I'm going to post Eric the link to the story about like the cat being removed from the Superman issue, which is issue number 712. So he can post that in the show notes as we're doing that.
Thank you. That's really
Give me 2
great.
seconds.
Okay, so while he does that, I will give you my Tubi recommendation. This is To Be Fair, our regular podcast segment in which I recommend a Tubi movie. Because Tubi is one of my favorite streaming services. It doesn't even require you to log in. You can just watch movies for free, usually with ads. Tubi does not pay us, though we have asked them several times too. But so War of the Worlds is there. My To Be Fair recommendation
of like, we're doing it anyway, but would you like to give us money?
I'm gonna keep doing it. There are so many streaming services. So many of them cost you money. So many of them like want you to sign up and then send you a million emails. You can just watch Tubi. I love it. One of my absolute favorite movies growing up. I have two Tubi recommendations. Each comes with a little bit of a story. One of my absolute favorite movies growing up. I was a huge fan of In Living Color, the sketch comedy show. And the Wayans brothers made a scrappy little superhero movie called Blank Man. And Blank Man. I have not watched Blank Man in many years.
Feels very appropriate given the way that we focus the conversation on like Jor-El's message in Superman. But continue, yeah.
Blank
very
Man.
Appropriate Tubi recommendation.
It just feels, Blank Man. It's a superhero comedy movie from the Wayans brothers, whom I loved, and it's just a movie I remember. It's a superhero whose powers are derived from garbage, and I loved it growing up. I have no idea if it holds up to today's standards, but I remember thinking it was great back in the day. So go watch Blank Man. My other I think I've told this story on live streams or podcasts before, but one of the very first dates I ever went on, I was a person who I would just go see the movies. I would walk to the movie theater, or more importantly, rollerblade to the movie theater because I was cool, and just show up and see what movie was playing next, buy a ticket, and watch that. I did not care what movie I saw. I just wanted to watch movies. So I got an opportunity to go on a date with someone who wanted to go to the movies. That's great. I did not pay attention to what movie it was. It was The Client, which is a movie I remember enjoying.
Yeah. Very adult movie, if I remember, like very like proper mature grown up movie, if I remember correctly.
It's not a good date movie.
Yeah, no. I mean, Susan Sarandon and Tommy Lee Jones. She's just like, I can feel the heat just popping off that screen.
But I did not care. You see, I just wanted to see movies. So I went. I saw this movie. I was so enraptured by the movie when my date kind of smacked me on the arm a little bit and held out her hand. I very politely said, "Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like some soda?"
I'm sorry, I'm watching. I'm really engaged here. Can we pick this up later? Yeah.
What do you want? Some of my snacks? Well, you want some of my soda? And she never talked to me again.
That is adorable. Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, young love. But both The Client and Blank Man available to watch right now on Tubi. That is To Be Fair.
Nice.
Oh my God! Stop giving us super chats. Sussy Guru says, "What are y'all's opinions on Major Payne?" I loved it. I don't know if it's good, but I loved it.
You're a Wayans brothers fan, of course you love Major Payne. I'm gonna hold my tongue on that one. I have not seen it in like recently enough to like assume that my judgment of it holds. I remember not being hugely impressed by it, but I may also be thinking of The Pacifier. Because is it Major Payne, the one where he's like, you need something to distract you, and he breaks the finger? Is that the one that I'm thinking of? Yeah. Okay, so I do remember. I do remember Major Payne then. Okay. I have nothing to add to this conversation.
It's Damon Wayans doing a silly voice and being a drill sergeant for an entire movie. It's great. It's great. He talks like this. I am a drill sergeant. I think it's great.
Are they? They're bringing back Scary Movie. Are the Wyans involved in the Scary Movie reboot?
So, yes, it is a huge deal. They the studios ripped that IP away from the Wayans brothers, and they made several very terrible scary
with the
movies.
Zuckers. Wasn't it one of the Zuckers? Wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. But the Wayans are getting it back for the reboot. Nice. So I am unreasonably excited for it. I don't know if they've still got it. I don't know if I've grown past their particular style of comedy, but I'm very excited for it.
They still churn them out though. Like they're still doing like, I mean, was it 50 Shades of Black they did it? Like they did a 50 Shades of Grey parody at one point. Like that's how hot they're still on it. They still got it. Still got the juice.
Oh, listen, I'm gonna
Thank
get
you,
you,
Eric.
sucker. I'm gonna get you, sucker is great. Don't be a menace while drinking your juice in the hood. Man, I'm a big believer in the Wayans comedies. Now I have to watch 50 Shades. All right, hold on, adding it to the list. Hold on.
You're like, in order to watch the parody, I have to watch the original. Otherwise, I won't get the jokes.
50 Shades of Black. It's there. All right. Hey, everybody. We have to wrap this up as we do. We have been podcasting for over 3 hours.
What happened to Jesse, by the way? Like, I feel like we never got an answer to that.
Jesse, according to Jesse, his power went out. Apparently, some neighbors were like digging and knocked out his power.
Okay.
So we lost Jesse.
What happens to you guys? Sorry, this is not the European commenting on American, but is that what happens to you guys?
Okay. 100%. Like we have specialty like places that you're supposed to call. If you dig more than 3 inches in your yard, you have to like get special permits because we have cables running everywhere.
Interesting.
And it's something that can happen very easily. Power gets knocked out.
Wow. Okay.
But
sorry.
This is what happens when Marty is not here to corral us.
To keep us online and on point.
So I think we had really some meaty conversations. Superman obviously is a big movie, is going to be a big movie this summer. It's important we had that conversation. And then we talked about Star Trek Voyager for an hour and a half. It was great.
Inexplicably, I am so sorry.
Never apologize. If we can veer any podcast into Voyager talk, I am there for it.
Well, was that the one where like Nick was playing one of those Star Trek games and it was just the two of us talking about Star Trek for an hour and a half? Well, Nick was just holding the controller. That was a
sponsored stream of the Star Trek game. And by the way, the sponsor got back to us and said that was the greatest stream ever. We didn't talk about the game once. All right.
Yep, there it is. There's the footage.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, for listening. What?
There's one last dono.
Son of a bitch. There's one last dono. Thank you, Eric, for letting Sir George Lucas. Oh, no. Okay, this is a podcast in its own because I do have strong feelings on this movie. Darren, will you tell us about Costner's The Postman?
Why is that the post? Like, why not Waterworld is the one that is like actually has an argument for being good, like to it.
I
the
love
Postman,
Waterworld.
Like, have you seen the Ulysses cut of Waterworld? I love that we're going to go for 20 minutes on Waterworld, and the question was about.
Yes, I have the Blu-ray with the 4 different cuts on it.
Yes, it's incredible. Like, it's an anchor. Is that Like again, we talked about like the importance of Blu-rays, and we talked about like director's cuts. Watch the Ulysses cut of Waterworld. It's not great, but it's good. It's a good time. The thing about the Postman is like, what if you did Waterworld, but it was boring? Where it's like, what was your one note on Waterworld? It's like Waterworld was too exciting. We need another post-apocalyptic movie.
Mm-hmm.
Audiences didn't respond well to water. Okay, so this one's going to be very dirty. There's going to be a lot of dirt and gravel and trees in this one. No water in this one, as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
And it is like so serious in the way that Costner movies tend to be. Like Dances with Wolves is very self-serious and very earnest. And like, to get back to Waterworld as the point of comparison, like the Waterworld thing works because it is self-serious and self-important and very earnest, and Costner is the only man who can save humanity. But it also opens with Costner literally drinking his own piss. So there is a sense of like, okay, this is weird, and you can kind of get over the hump of like Costner as like director, producer, star, messiah figure if he is doing stuff that is that weird. Whereas the Postman is, to me, incredibly serious, incredibly earnest, incredibly heavy-handed. It is far, far, far too long and like far, far, far too dry. And it has that kind of Costner thing where like, and again, this is, I kind of miss movie stars for this reason in particular. You mentioned how like there's a lack of sex in mainstream blockbusters.
Yeah.
I do kind of like when you had people like Costner who were, as you like, leading man, producer, director, possibly writer as well, who are like, so the plot of this movie is going to involve how valuable my sperm is, right? It's gonna be an entire subplot about how, like, I gotta travel the world and like I gotta spread my like it's the reverse. He literally wrote himself the James Gunn Superman plot where it's like, sorry, it's an obligation. I gotta fuck. It's like so many of like Costner's movies are in the like, there's this beautiful woman and she wants my seed, and I'm not sure. It's an like, are you? It's a lot to put on me. This beautiful woman just throwing herself at me, even though she's in many cases half or even a third my age. I just, it's very tough on me to have to deal with being wanted so aggressively and so unreservedly by these beautiful women. And it's the kind of thing that like you can't put in a movie unless you are actor, director, producer Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
It is such an ego trip that it's like, kind of love it when it happens, because it's like you can tell that nobody in that room was ever going to raise their voice and go, "Oh, Mr. Costner, maybe we should delete the subplot about how valuable your sperm is in this post-apocalyptic America."
No. And how about right after that scene, we have 15 solid minutes of me solemnly leaving the village on a horse, and everyone doesn't want me to go because they love me too much. It is the movie you I think it is a necessary watch to understand unchecked ego. Like Waterworld is pretty self-indulgent, but you know, it has other things going for it. The Postman is all Costner.
No, like Waterworld is insane. Is the thing about Waterworld is like Waterworld is the perfect monument of like studio insanity in the late 1990s, where it's like it is that point where like sound like Liam Neeson in Batman Begins was like, every time Hollywood reaches the peak of its decadence, it decides to make like 5 movies about water. Where it's like in the late 90s you had Speed 2, which was set on a boat in the ocean. You had like Alien Resurrection, which inexplicably involved a water tag sequence. You had Titanic, and you had Waterworld, where it's like every like 10 to 20 years, Hollywood forgets how difficult, expensive, and dangerous it is to make a movie on water. And like, this time we'll get it right. And it always becomes, with the exception of Titanic, shout out to Big Jim Cameron, it always becomes like an act of hubris where like, oh yeah, there's a reason why we don't shoot on water like that. There's a reason why Spielberg didn't really go back to water after Jaws. And like you're right. Like while like Waterworld is such this perfect monument of like studio excess in the late 90s, blockbuster filmmaking in the late 90s, and has so much inside it as a rich text, The Postman is quite literally just Costner. The only thing like Postman has going for it is just a glimpse into the man's ego and the man's will and the man's vision of himself as an actor who will save America. That is the plot. That is the text of the movie. He is an actor who will save America.
If I'm good enough at pretending, I can save the country. It's so good.
Yeah, and like the problem is it's boring and it's too long, but it's also like such an interesting Freudian thing of like, it's like Costner is sitting on the couch in front of you just talking, and you're like, you realize this is a therapy session, Mr. Costner. I'm not a licensed therapist. And it's like, no. But the women, they only want my sperm. And it's like, oh, okay.
If you've ever had that friend who is able to magically turn any conversation into a little mini therapy session to tell you about their life, and they take over, like that's that's The Postman. It is a must watch.
Open Range, I do like Open Range. I have a huge to avoid being too mean about Costner, I do like Open Range. And he is a movie star. Like you go back and you watch his movies, he is like a proper 90s movie star like we don't have anymore. Probably for good reason if you watch The Postman. But anyway.
I unironically love Waterworld. I think Waterworld's phenomenal in all cuts. So I'm down with Costner.
I was blown away watching Waterworld, because for years, as you say, Waterworld was like shorthand for like fish tar, or Kevin's Gate as it was known. It was like it was a byline for folly. And like I watched it and I was like, this is not good, to be clear. Like this is not like, I don't think this is I don't think this is Heaven's Gate, a misunderstood masterpiece of American cinema, but it is better than its reputation, quite enjoyable on its own terms, and one of those movies where you're like, how did anybody think that this would work?
That's the joy of it. Is enough people were like, he's gonna start the movie by drinking his own piss, and the ride keeps going from there.
What if there's a woman and a child that he helps, and he's just the most unpleasant human being to both of them? What if like
they still kind of want to fuck him? The woman.
Well, like that is a reverse Costner where like there's a really unpleasant subplot in the first half where it's like he wants to fuck her, but of course you do naturally get around to the inevitable Costner of the, just so we're clear, the person who does end up being forced into sex is this dude, this public service Kevin Costner.
All right, so that is our.
That's why they call me the Postman, because I'm always nailing your mom. Sorry.
That was too brilliant. That's how we end a podcast. We're ending a podcast. If you haven't seen, we have to end it now, or else I am. Frankly, by the way, I'm shocked. I have not gotten a Slack message of like, why are you guys still podcasting?
Why is this still on? They've lost their minds. They've gone feral. We just left them in.
Utterly shocked that we are still going. But the powers that be have not shut us off. If you haven't yet,
frantically digging outside Second Wind HQ, going, why can't I hit the power source?
Make sure you check out Darren's new video. Just went up today on Jurassic Park sequels in general.
Shout out to Jesse Schwab. Wonderful edit on that. Like, always impressed. And like, I love the interstitial ads in them as well. It's fantastic. Like, it's really cool.
Oh, he's phenomenal. We have other stuff going on too, but I'm not even going to get to there because we're going for too long. So goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening.
I am.
No. Yeah, I was thinking that you were going